I still have a bit of this coffee left, and I really want to sit here and just enjoy the coffee. But if we talked any more about cars and like race cup series and like we should just have been recording for the last hour now.
Yeah.
I'd just rather sit here and enjoy this coffee because they made this one really good.
It hit different.
Well, what's funny is my taste is still on its way back.
Yeah, I forgot.
And now that it's coming back, I think I'm more excited about just tasting things, and I'm like, that's amazing. Even if a month ago I wouldn't have liked it at all.
Right.
But yeah, I knew that once we started recording, I wasn't going to be like slurping on this thing as much as I was before.
You can taste the difference between caramel and black coffee now.
Yeah, I can taste the difference between black coffee and coffee that just has like some sugar and cream in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is good. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
And I can tell. See, I can tell that this is. I don't know if I should say I can tell that this has caramel in it, but I can tell that it's got a different taste than just getting a regular.
Right.
With regular cream and sugar in it. So, yeah.
At least it's coming back.
Yeah, that's good. Smells like still not there at all. So I don't know what that's all about. You know, I assume usually when you're sick, you lose your smell and your taste goes with it because of your nasal passages being blocked up or whatever.
Yeah.
But COVID just does weird things to your body and maybe irreparable things to your body.
Right.
You know, who knows? So, yeah, the fact that my taste is coming back but my smell isn't is weird. Yeah, it's weird. But
science.
Viruses.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Welcome back to the podcast. Don't remember what number this is. The second I always put it in the computer, I'm like, oh, duh, it's 28, which I think this is. But I stopped saying, welcome back to episode number whatever, because I did that a couple of times and it was wrong.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, okay, well, that's set in stone. Yeah, recording at the house. Corey's back with me.
What's going on?
And
glad to be back.
Yeah, you were heading up here to hang out anyway, and I was like, I haven't recorded an episode yet today or this week. Might as well do one while you're up here because I've the last like 3 in a row I've done alone.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to the point where I'm getting to the point where I feel like I'm good at it or getting better at it, but I hate it.
Oh yeah.
I just sit here and I'm like staring at the wall and I'm like, well, and the hardest, I think the thing that I've realized is the hardest part, aside from staying fluid in what I want to talk about, is the actual tone of my voice.
Yeah.
I feel like I become monotone because I'm focusing on talking and I'm focusing on like subject matter, and then I forget about how my voice is sounding as it comes out of my face hole. I'm just like talking, and then when I listen to it back, I'm like, oh man, if somebody's listening like in their car with their headphones on, they're gonna be either put to sleep or So I try to, because Fred White even mentioned that. He's like, yeah, man, I like sitting down and like watching your episodes. I'll actually put it on my TV and watch it. And I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. And he goes, yeah, I mean, the solo ones are great. I mean, sometimes your voice gets kind of monotone, but I kind of like it. And I was like, took that as like a constructive criticism.
Of course.
Because he didn't say it as constructive criticism. I think he just basically said it that it was like something that he liked, like that he didn't mind.
Yeah.
But I took it as like, oh, maybe I should like, especially if I'm alone, it's hard to bounce like crescendoing like turns of phrase off of people, you know,
because it's not a balanced conversation. It's just you talking.
Just consume this, what I'm talking about as I'm sitting here alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this episode, as you already know, I blew a little bit of smoke a few days ago about this next episode was going to be talking about the SOWO trips, and specifically 2013 and 2014. So we can get into that in a little bit. But we were just talking about something that we could record an entire episode about.
Literally.
We were talking about DTM Group 5 and like basically 1970s through 1990s road racing.
Yep. And the homologation cars that came along with all of that. Yeah,
and said cars being way too expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so actually, we were talking about what groups, what cars were in, and or should I say what cars their specific groups were in. Did Lancia ever all it's going to take is a Google search from someone else, and they're like, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. Did Lancia ever race in like those circuits? Or were they always like in the rally?
I think it was just rally.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because I didn't.
Can't be sure, but
when we were talking about DTM specifically, and like the Mercedes 190 and Audi's DTM cars, and obviously the BMW E30s, I kept thinking about other cars that were in that circuit. And I kept thinking about Delta Evolutions, but then I was like, I think those were only rallycross cars because they're all-wheel drive and like had good suspension and so I couldn't remember who else was in that. But we talked about 80s and 90s homologation cars for like an hour.
We did, yeah.
And my voice
with
already,
the mics off.
sitting right here. And that's why I kept saying, I should just record. So because there's other people that would like to listen to us talk about those cars.
Yeah.
And so I was mentioning. In 2000, oh man, the years are all blurry now. It was November of 2016, I think, or 17. I was down in Daytona for the Vintage 24, and I'd seen them run the vintage cars at the track before the Rolex 24 the previous year in February. Mm-hmm. So they sent the vintage cars out for just like a parade lap, basically.
Parade lap.
It wasn't one lap. They ran for an hour or something. But I came back later that fall in November for the vintage, and it was so cool to it wasn't a parade lap. Like they were going for it. Like those guys were. M1s, 935 Porsches, the C2 Corvette, like the Grand Sport replica cars, the GT40 replica cars.
Yes.
All those cars are out there, and they're banging doors. Not really banging doors, but. You can tell when they get out of that road course and you get on the turn one on the bank, at Daytona, they're just going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no fixing those cars now.
It's wild.
Yeah, there's no team. Well, I mean, I know they have a team, but
private teams. Yeah. 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 And we walked through. So we had like pit passes and all that stuff. And we were walking through the pits and we were watching them work on them. And cause I'm sure you get a couple laps out of some of those cars and fuel's not right. And yeah. And so they're always tinkering on them. But there were a few 962s there. Like the Puma 962 car was there. And that car was running the course alone for a little bit, like midday. This was before the vintage. So I saw the 962 there. It was a weekend after the vintage or a day or two after. Because it was the year I was down there with the E23. Yeah. And we were in the track photographing the cars. And it was quiet. There's nothing going on. So it was either the day... Might have been the day after the 24 because it was always right around the same time as Simply Clean.
Yep.
And we were down there that year with the E23. But Robert Overholzer was in there. Overholzer. I always pronounce his name wrong. He owns Lufttechnik.
Yep.
And he worked on some Porsche factory teams in the 90s.
That's
so
right.
He's turned wrenches on a lot of these cars.
Dream job.
Dude. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even a tech and that seems like a dream job.
Yeah.
But we were somewhere near the backstretch or something. And he had one of his buses there and we were just taking photos and something got out on the track. Something got out you could hear way across the field at turn one.
Something snuck up.
And I was like, what on earth is that? And you could hear it resonating off the grandstands as it went across turn two and then opened up for the backstretch. We might have been right at the base of turn 3. And when it went by, it was the Puma 962. And I was like,
Dang.
what? And I knew it was a Porsche, but I was like, what on earth car is that? He's like, that's the 962. I'm pretty sure he said it was a 962. And he had actually worked on 962s. And pretty incredible stuff. He's like, and he was telling me all about, I didn't realize that there were still 6 cylinders. And I'm pretty sure, I might have all this wrong.
So. No,
pretty sure there was still a 6-cylinder motor. And he was talking about how insane, how much power they could get out of those motors. And yeah, so it was really cool to see those cars in almost like an intimate setting because there was nothing else out there.
Right.
You could just hear that car. You could hear the sequentials and the gear changes, and it's like, wow, that's insane. So, I mean, if there's ever any other reason to go to Daytona in November for vintage, to just get to see those cars in the same space is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And they have them on display during Rolex too, because obviously the Rolex 24, those were the cars that were running the Rolex. Or comparable races back when those cars were new, which is pretty wild.
Yep.
Definitely wild. But
yeah, I definitely have to get down there for those.
Yeah, I want to go back. The last couple of years, it was just I was doing something else, or I had already taken the time and money to do something else. I'm like, no, I'll go next year. Then after this specific year, I'm thinking more about like, maybe I'll take the time to do that stuff more.
Yeah.
Just because I took it for granted when we could do it without thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then we were talking about like the 90s, might have been, I don't know what kind of groupings they had in the classes at Vintage, but they had like a bunch of like 80s and 90s cars running out there. They had like C4 Corvettes and E36s and like that gen of car. And there was that Oldsmobile out there I was telling you about. And we couldn't figure out what it was. And it had like a livery on it, but it wasn't a manufacturer livery.
Right.
So every time it would go by, and it was at night too, and I'd really squint to see if I could see any sponsor stickers and make out any manufacturer. It was clear it was a GM car, but we couldn't figure out what it was. Then finally we realized it was an Oldsmobile Aurora, like a 2-door Aurora.
Believe it or not.
And it looked so good.
Yeah.
It was like my favorite looking car out of that whole class. I'm
Yeah.
like, man, that thing looks so good. Yeah, so I had no idea. And then obviously I looked up online and started searching or researching like the Aurora, the actual Aurora. Like, I don't know if it was DTM, GT. I think it was GT.
Yeah, it's going to be GT, yeah.
Yeah.
I think DTM was all German.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because I was trying to think the other day if there was any American cars in the DTM.
I think DTM is Deutsch.
Yep, that's right.
Whatever.
Yeah, because I forgot what it even stands for.
Mm.
But yeah, so anyway, we were hard on that conversation for a while without recording.
Yeah.
Which
somehow got on the odd Oldsmobile Aurora.
Yeah, because whenever I think of like that era of race cars, I always think about that car now because of how good it looked. But it was the only one out there too, so it kind of stood apart in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, for those wondering, the Ludwic's Vintage Garage shirt order is over. Thank you guys so much for putting an order in there. Yeah, that's all. That was the only news, I think. How's everything going in your life?
Living, existing.
Yep. Same. We're
changes all over the place, but that's life at this point.
Yeah. So yeah, without going too deep, the last job you had imploded on itself, like you figured it was going to.
It did. Yeah. There was a silver lining. Not a silver lining, but like I guess red flags.
Well, the silver lining would have been that you kind of knew this was coming anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had it in the back of my mind that this wasn't a long-term situation. So the silver lining would be while I worked there, I built skills that I'll have forever. You know what I mean? And I taught myself a lot of things. So
taught yourself. Yeah.
I just had the tools and the customer base to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well. So yeah, to new beginnings.
Cheers.
Prost to new beginnings. Yeah, because as we're recording, we are tomorrow is New Year's Eve.
Yep.
So 2020, bon voyage. Yeah. Except 2020, we're entering 2021 in the same. It's just another day.
I know it.
Another day of the virus being out there in lockdowns and economic failure and in certain ways, economic flourishing in other ways, I guess. Well, man, the car market never skipped a beat this year.
Seriously, yeah. Even I've had a couple interviews recently at shops, and they're like, through COVID, we literally grew.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Unreal. Yeah. And so if a shop was growing tangibly, like a shop was actually like building on or making additions or whatever, people in the construction industry, all those people were just out flat.
Exactly.
Out flat.
Yep.
So it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like my year, I'd say now that we're ending 2020, it was pretty comparable to last year, as far as like the amount of work I did, and overall, numbers for the year. But by mid-year, I was like, this is a write-off year, man. Like this is not from March to like July. It was like barely anything.
Right.
And so at the beginning I was hit pretty hard because obviously my business is making merchandise for people. And when this thing first hit and everybody was locked down and businesses were closed, nobody was spending money on their merchandise.
Spending stopped.
Yeah. So at the beginning, I got real scared. And then towards the end, once everybody kind of figured out how to keep the gears turning with what's going on out there, then my business started to pick up a little bit. So yeah, we're ending the year not really too, too discouraged, I guess.
Yeah.
Having caught COVID myself, I'm going into 2021 like way more aware of what it is that's out there, I
Right.
guess, but with a little bit, higher head on my shoulders, I guess. Be like, okay, I'm ready. We're gearing up. And I haven't really talked too much about the next possible step with LUDWICK'S Garage.
Right.
And
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah. I figured you'd get into some of that on this one.
Yeah, we can. It wasn't like I was going to keep a big reveal, but yeah, I mean, I might be signing a lease on a shop space in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And it's been terrifying me because, I mean, as we just talked about, you're in transition right now. So it's not like you and I were both, like our last shop space we had.
Right.
It's not like we're both going in on a shop space.
Yeah. I'm not in the position to
Right.
say, yes, I can do this, or no, I can't.
Right.
So,
I mean, and that's understandable.
yeah.
So that being said, the same landlord we had last year has an available unit that's even closer to my house, like by another 10 minutes. I mean, it's 4 miles from my house.
Yeah.
I timed myself. I mean, I know the area real well, but just for giggles, I timed myself when I drove out of the driveway. I caught a red light in town and still got there in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
You can't beat that. You really
right.
can't.
So that being said, it's an outreach financially for me. And you and I have talked about this all day today.
Of course.
This,
Yeah.
because we hadn't really caught up since I kind of decided to pull the trigger on it.
Yep.
And I haven't signed any papers, obviously, but I've basically told him, like, there's a 2-post lift, like, on order, and, like, everything's starting to go. And like I said, every morning I wake up with a different outlook. Like, I'll wake up some mornings and I'm like, let's do this. I can't wait. 2021, gonna have a shop, gonna have a brand new 2-post lift. All the cars will be inside. I'll have a car and a lift. I can go now. I can finish some of my own projects. I can start the projects that I want to flip or do giveaways with or whatever.
Yep.
And then there are some mornings I wake up terrified and I'm like ready to back out. I'm like, I'm done. I got to call him. I can't do this. I can't.
I get it.
Yeah, I can't take on this monthly payment because when I start looking at my rent, all my other bills, and then this shop space on top of it, plus utilities or whatever, and then I break it down to what I actually have to make per month. And because right now, like, I've been doing the laser thing for I'm going into my 6th year doing this now. So even though that's a sporadic, there's no like set pattern to like income. It's sporadic and it's a wave. It's wild.
Right.
So I haven't really been able to like budget, like, okay, I'm going to make X amount per week so I can take on this, and the other thing.
Yep.
But in the last 5 or 6 years, I've learned how to continue traveling, continue doing like being on the road and juggling the bills I have now. But it wasn't until I added that shop space and its units or utilities onto my monthly payments till I realized, it all came like a crushing weight down on me. I'm like, I won't be able to do anything. Like,
Yeah,
I have
I get
to
it.
grind so much harder. And there's been this battle, this struggle of trying to find like the quality of life and utilizing the freedom that comes with being self-employed to be able to just book a flight to Europe for a few weeks, up until this past 2020 year.
Right.
But like to just bail off for a couple weeks or a whole month and be like, I've got next month's bills put aside. That's fine. And I'm used to that. And that's the way I've wanted to live my life for a long time. So I've felt quality of life has been through the roof. I found incredibly comfortable,
Yeah.
with the exception of a few, investments that really took the wind out of my sails and then had to grind and kind of climb back up. But with this new possible endeavor, I've just woken up in different headspaces. I'll wake up some mornings and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for my life to be all work. I mean, I'm capable and willing to put in all the work it takes to be successful, but I really like the safety net of like a lower overhead. And I'm like, I can just bail out whenever I want.
Yeah.
But now we're at the end of December going into January in New Hampshire. The Sentry's in my enclosed trailer. The Corvair's in my carport out front, which normally my daily driver sits in. So now my daily driver's outside, covered in snow whenever we get snow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm cursing at the wind as I'm clearing snow off my car. And the 700's in the little back room in my dad's garage, which luckily that car's the size of this table and you can fit it anywhere. But like I can't work on anything because my dad's got some long-term projects on the lift through the winter, which is good. I'm glad he's busy.
Right. Absolutely.
But now it's like, yep, at that point, like I just got to take the step out and just do it. Like if I want to even work on my own projects, let alone something I'm hoping to make money with.
Exactly.
I need my own shop space. So, and obviously, like we've talked about, it'd be awesome once you get solidified and everything kind of evens out for you again. Like we can obviously still, do a joint venture
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. And I definitely see that happening. Eventually, yeah. Just have to, you know.
And we've talked about that for a few years now,
Of
obviously.
course.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I got this close. To bailing out and going to California.
Oh,
Like,
I know it.
so close, like, or Florida, or anywhere that doesn't have snow.
I know.
I used this as like, I tried to listen to everyone. I tried to listen to God, to the universe, to everybody around me, to the wind that's howling. I was listening to everything for any sort of like whisper of like, go there.
Yeah.
Like that's the open
This
door.
is the path.
Because there was like 8 open doors in front of me.
Right.
And I was
and
like,
that can be overwhelming.
oh, dude. And like I told you before, and I've said it on the podcast too, I understand that there's people that are sitting in cubicles or just working their 9 to 5 to get by because it's just what is on their plate.
Yeah.
I get that the position I'm in, or people like me, like when you've got a bunch of open doors and you don't know which one to go through, the liberty and the freedom that has with it is intoxicating sometimes. So I understand that, but oh man, I'm telling you, like, it's stressful not knowing which direction to go in.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to be 36 in a couple months. I'm going to be closer to 40 than I am to 30 in a couple months. I'm technically closer to 40 now, halfway through 35. So not knowing what direction or what lane to stay in and focus on 100% is super stressful.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. In the last couple solo episodes I've done, that's all I've talked about.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that's circling around in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the news there. I wasn't keeping all that for like some sort of like big news reveal.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping, and they're going to fully refurb the shop space. It's an older shop space. I've showed you photos of it.
Yeah. It's pretty cool he was willing to do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Full refurbishment. Like they're fixing all the holes in the wall. They're going to paint the walls. They're going to do the floor. Then they're going to epoxy the floor, brand new 2-post lift. They're going to put a bathroom in it.
Yep.
Because it's a big enough shop space, but it's a part of a building. The 2 last units in this building didn't have running water in them.
Right.
And I basically told him, and luckily he's a car guy. I mean, you know, you've met him.
Oh yeah, he's got a collection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And although he's not like hands-on, he's hands-on for some stuff. In his retirement, he's been like tinkering more. But when I basically told him that having a bathroom and a sink in there was like the deciding factor for me, he's like, yeah, we can do that. We'll break the floor up. We'll bring water in from the next door unit. And I'm like, thank God.
That's super cool. A lot of landlords won't ever do that.
Right.
They'll just find someone that'll fit in and pay the rent.
And he was willing to work with me too. He said, listen, this is what I'll rent it to you for as is. Like not refurbed, no lift, no water. And it was like, it was doable. I'm like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then I went and looked at the spot. And like I told you before, my buddy Jeff is in there right now. Yeah. And so Jeff's moving into a fully refurbished, a little bit larger unit, 2 doors down. So I got a chance to look at his unit, and he's, you know, I don't want to say he's messy. He's been in that unit for like 4 years. So it's just become his
accumulated
space.
Stuff. Yeah.
So looking at that space, I was like, I don't know, man, I could kind of see being in here. I don't know. It's kind of old and ratty. Then I went down to his new unit, like where he's moving into, and I was like, well, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like that's a no, because he did what Andy's offering to me, you know, was they refurbed it, put a brand new 2-post lift in there. And, you know, I was like, yeah, let's do it. But then, like I said, 2 days later, I'll wake up and I'll be like, what have I done? I can't do this. I've bit off more than I can chew. This is all a disaster. Yeah. So I've been on a roller coaster of emotions the last couple of weeks. Not like sad emotions. I've been traveling through my head, playing out all the different scenarios. You know, because like Gavin and I were on the phone for a couple hours yesterday talking about Riverside coming up at the end of March. And I'm going to be making him some Riverside stuff, merchandise and signage and whatnot. But he's like, so, you know, do you want, you know, you coming down? Like you want the Governor's Club booth set up again? We'll set up just like we did last fall. And, you know, I've sold my truck. I haven't bought a truck yet. And so I was like, man, I don't know. Because now I'm thinking like, I usually go down for 2 weeks or a week and a half. And now I'm like, man, even if I buy a truck between now and then, which I hope I do. Yeah. But then I'm like, oh man, the cost of going down there, the cost of the shop. Now I need to make sure if I go down, I will vend. I need to make sure I make enough money to make the trip worth it. Right. So now I'm like, I'm over calculating everything now. Cause now I'm like way more nervous than I was, you know, a month ago. So
yeah, that comes with it though.
For sure.
Big step.
I am literally not like this is not an isolated event. For me, it is. For me, this is the biggest step out, like personally, you know, because I've been able to run the laser shop from here at the house. Any projects I've needed to work on, I've been blessed enough to work out of my dad's shop. But that obviously comes when the shop is empty. You know,
exactly.
Like when he's got space in the shop. So
and like you were saying, it was always a rush to get the next project done and out so he can get back in there and continue working.
Yeah, and that was he never rushed me.
Right.
There'd be times where he'd be like, you know, I got a car that's got to be in here by the weekend type deal. But it was never like, he never deliberately rushed me. But I always felt, I put that on myself.
Of course.
I'm like, this isn't my shop. It's not my lift. I mean, I'm his son, so I know that I'm grateful enough to be able to use that stuff. But yeah, I just knew that the second he had a shop or had a car that needed to come to the shop, it was his space. So yeah, so I never felt, and that's what I mentioned earlier today. Like, you know, the Corvair has so many small things I need and some big things that I need to do on that car. Like I've got that exhaust manifold flange, like just like clamped together, and the whole exhaust system needs to be like redone. And it's like, I've been in there already, so most of the bolts and stuff will probably come out. You know, I've already been in there, but it's one of those deals where you get it up on the lift and you break something, then you need to order a part.
Yep.
And it could be a 4-day event having that car on the lift. So it'd be nice. It's just going to be nice having it on my own lift. And when the parts come in, I just do it.
Yeah.
You know?
It just stays there until it's done.
And like I said, I put all that stress on myself before. Like if I had parts on order and there was a car in the lift in my dad's shop, it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
But I just always felt like imposing. I'm like, I better get the car done. Got to get it out of there so he can get something in.
Right.
And that's okay because I had all of his tools available to me, which is amazing. So that's the other thing is the last few, as I was doing Christmas shopping and stuff, like, you know, I went to like Lowe's and Harbor Freight and all these other places. And I'm looking at all the stuff I'm going to have to invest in because I haven't had to buy a roll around toolbox and fill that toolbox. And so I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm like, yep, I've justified spending, you know, a few $1,000s on just furnishing the space.
Of course.
And just getting some stuff in there. And I'll probably build some workbenches. I'll probably invest in some steel and build a welding table. Like I'll probably put a welding table together, you know, like a pretty, you know, 1/4 inch or 3/8 steel top, you know, and obviously having like a 1/2 inch thick one is like the real deal.
Permanent one,
Yeah, but I figured if I got something that was metal that I could ground to, if I was plasma cutting or welding or whatever. So yeah, that's the next step. And we're hoping, I haven't talked to him since before Christmas, but he was hoping February 1st they'd have everything done and ready to move in. So,
yeah, hopefully they do.
Yeah. Because at that point we're almost, you know, it's like, I really want a place for the winter, you know?
Yeah.
So if it was like May and we're getting this thing done, I'm like, I kind of don't want the spot anymore. I'll just like,
I'll do it outside.
I'll park my cars and it's warm out now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. I'm excited though. All that emotional roller coaster aside, I'm super excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super excited.
Because the other end of the stress is that you now have a place where you can work on projects, do stuff that's going to make you money, you know, all that other stuff. Yeah,
and that's the big thing I keep talking about because it's hard having. I think most artists or artisans, you know, because we are artists,
of course.
Even when you talk about like working on cars, even though we aren't reinventing the wheel or building a car from scratch, it's like you are an artist in a way when you've got a vision in your head and you make it a reality.
Yeah.
But I think most artists are super hard on themselves or their own worst critic. And being a musician, I totally am.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Totally am. So it's hard for me to dig deep and find the confidence to be like, yeah, it's a huge outreach financially, but I'll make it happen. It's going to be this great thing. And I'm not a Debbie Downer with myself, but I'm constantly, I work harder to get to that headspace than the alternative. Like, it's always harder work for me mentally to be like, yeah, it'll work. Everything, having that shop space will like provide more work and more open doors and more income. And instead it's like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, I look at the outlook of the year every like 12 months without making any money and all that money just coming out of my bank account. I'm like, I'm going to be broke at the end of the year. So it's hard to look at the year and be like, oh yeah, like I'll be able to pay for that unit. No problem. So, I mean, and I think that's healthy to a point because it helps light a fire under you to like prove to yourself that you do have what it takes to get it done. Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely not one of those guys that goes head first into things with all the confidence in the world. I believe in myself, but
Right.
yeah, I don't have like blind confidence or
Yeah.
like a swelled head to be like, oh yeah, I could totally make this work. And
Yeah.
yeah, when it's quiet, I'm like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
Yeah, it's calculated risks.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Educated guesses and
Yeah,
calculated
yeah.
risks.
Yeah.
That's the next Ludwig shirt.
Yeah.
Educated guesses and
Calculated
risks. Oh my gosh.
Market.
Yeah. There's probably one out there already like that.
Yeah, probably.
It probably sounds better too.
Some Etsy store or something.
Yeah, probably. Or whatever t-shirt ad that you see when you scroll on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you've put the Mercedes away. Well, it's off
still
the road.
it's off the road. It's still at my apartment complex, but
outside that's
yeah.
tough. But I mean, it's not being driven into salt all the time.
No.
I'm sure it was driven into salt at some point.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I bought it super high up north Vermont.
Oh, that's right.
And it was pretty well beat when I got it, but yeah, it's living a better life now.
Counting the days down till spring, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
You're thinking of taking that to Riverside?
Yeah, I'd really like to. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what's on your plate right now, if the job situation you're working with right now comes to pass, it sounds like you probably could.
Right. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if all goes to plan, and anyone listening that goes to Riverside, my plan would be to take the 700. And our friend Alex McGinnis was like, "You got to bring the 700, man."
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "Well, technically, it's like I had the Corvair down there in the fall, which obviously, I mean, in the spring, which is when the show was first canceled.
Yeah.
But the Corvair was in Chattanooga, and then this past fall when they had the revised date, I brought the Century down.
Yep.
But I'm like, well, the only other car I have that's finished, quote unquote finished, is the 700. So.
Makes sense.
And it's the smallest car I've got, so it wouldn't be like trying to tow some super heavy.
Yeah.
Thing, so
we could tow that down with the Tacoma if we wanted to.
Yeah. Well, that's what I told. Who was I talking to? It was when I was talking to Mason. I was like, that thing doesn't even need to be in my trailer. I can just borrow my dad's trailer, the open trailer, and just tow it down on that, and just whatever I have for a truck, put my booth set up, the tent, and all that stuff in the bed of the truck.
Yeah.
You know? If I've got a cap on it or whatever, I still have to buy a truck. I told Mason that. I'm like, I can't make any solid decisions until like I have a truck.
Right.
And I could go just buy one, but I want it to be the right one, and I want to be excited about it too.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah.
We'll see.
Because you were excited about the Ford, so
yeah,
it only makes sense to move into something that you're as equally excited about.
I'd like it to be something that I'm not only just excited about, but something I can modify a little bit and build a little bit of equity in.
Yeah.
And then sell and then buy another truck. And
have the whole package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have that be something else. So I was supposed to be flying to Knoxville, Tennessee this weekend to bring a truck home.
Yeah.
Had it basically all finalized. For 2 days, the guy and I messaged back and forth. He sent me walk around videos of the truck. Sent me a cold startup, talked about all the quirks. Like I told him, I said, any issue, big or small, I want to know about them.
Yep.
Like does like the first 2 blower motor settings not work? Like is the resistor gone? Like is it just off or high? Like tell me, I want to know everything.
Yeah.
It's an 88 Chevy. Like I've had plenty. Like I know the common things. So just tell me. He's like, yeah, there's a little bit of play in the steering column. And I'm like, all right, it's probably just bolts up underneath. Like it's okay. So we went through everything. And I told him where I was from. I told him that I was serious about it. I told him I had friends in Knoxville that would give me a ride to his place or come look at it or whatever. And so I was like, well, I said, I won't try to bother you with New Year's Eve. I'll just come down, Saturday because New Year's Day is on Friday.
Yep.
And so then I think the last few questions I asked him were like just some tedious questions. I'm like, so all the lights work? Because I'd be driving it home on like
wipers and all that.
Plate. Yeah, I'm like, do the lights work? The wipers work? Fuel gauge works. And then he like saw the message but never responded. And then it says so and so took the ad down.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I've seen that happen a couple times before where they didn't deliberately take it down. It was like some sort of glitch on Marketplace.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, it says you took the ad down. Just touch and base, see what the latest is on this. Because I wasn't like barraging him. I knew he had a day job. So
yeah.
Like a day went by. I messaged him that like midday. He saw it but didn't respond. Then that whole night he didn't respond. So the next morning I messaged him and I was like, hey, it looks like you took the ad down, or it says you took the ad down. Just touching base on this. Just would love to give you a chat or give me a call. I'd love to chat with you about a few finalizing things before I book a flight. But
Yeah.
I'd like to book a flight now rather than Friday.
Yeah, serious about booking a flight.
Yep.
Yep.
And he just said, "Hey, to be 100% honest with you, man, the truck's not mine. It's my brother's, and he's not really that interested in helping me help him sell the truck. So I took the ad down." And that's all he said.
That's Facebook Marketplace.
Right. Yeah,
in
exactly.
A nutshell.
So,
Like,
so I was like, so is the truck still for sale? Like, can you give me his number? Like, what's the deal? And I just checked before we started recording this. It's been a day and a half, and now he's seen that message and still hasn't sent. I'm like, and the guy seemed nice enough. But,
done deal.
And this isn't the first time this has happened to me.
Yeah.
But it's like, it was an extended cab, 2-wheel drive dually GMT 400, first year GMT 400.
Yep.
So it had the pre-facelift interior, the vial gauges.
That's right.
I love that setup. And like 160,000 miles on it or something like that. Like, not a ton. Big block truck. It was basically everything I wanted.
Yeah.
And it was white too. Had the running boards, had the visor, had all the subtle. They had a fifth wheel ball in the bed. It had everything I wanted in a truck. And the price was just phenomenal.
And it looked super clean in photos.
He sent me the walk around videos. He like filmed underneath the truck and stuff. It was solid, rust-free Southern truck. And I was like, this is it. That's why I was trying to fly down this weekend to get it before anyone else got it. And so that one was kind of a bummer. But anyway, we'll see.
It happens.
If anyone listening has a GMT 400 Chevy, I would deal with a heavy Chevy 2500, like an 8-lug 2500.
Yep.
That was my last GMT 400. And
That's right.
That handled my 24-foot enclosed trailer with the Corvair in it. Probably would not like life with the Century in there.
Yeah.
But
many trucks would.
No. But I would, I'm looking for a GMT 400. Most of them are all big blocks, but a 3500 dually, extended cab or quad cab.
Yeah.
Preferably manual. There's one in Louisville right now that is in my price budget, like the truck. I don't know if you're friends with Alex McGinnis on Facebook, but he shared. He's the one who sent me the ad, but he reshared after I was like, nah, I found this white one in Knox. I'm gonna go after. He's been like sharing the ad.
Yeah.
He's like, someone buy this. So it's a crew cab. It's a 95. So it's got the facelifted GMT 400 interior.
Yep.
Like my Burgundy one had. So it's like the more comfortable interior.
Yeah.
It's a 4-door, long bed, dually, 2-wheel drive, and a manual, which you never see manual GMT 400s.
Yeah.
Big block truck with 100,000 miles on it.
Dang.
For like $6,500. And that's
pretty good.
Well, the Knoxville one was like $1,500 cheaper.
Yeah.
It was like $5,000. And I was like, I'm on my way.
Yeah, exactly.
But this one in Louisville has everything, right? Like I should be flying to Louisville this weekend. It's red.
Oh.
It's bright red.
Yeah, that doesn't really.
I can't do it. I know your 190's red, but
yeah, but before that, I never wanted a red car.
No, I told Alex that. I'm like, he sent me another listing for another one in the Louisville area, same truck but extended cab in a manual, bright red. I'm like, I can't like tell your boys out there to like get a black or a white
Paint them black or something.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
And so they're bright red. Yeah. I mean, like.
That's a lot of truck to be red.
Yeah.
That's the thing with the 190. It's a small car. Like there's not a lot of panels.
But sports cars are red.
Yeah, sports cars.
Not big tow rig trucks. Yeah, I can't do red.
Yeah.
If that truck was like $5,000, I'd go out and get it just because I'd have a truck.
Yeah.
Once the red got me fed up, I'd just sell it. But
yeah.
So anyway, that's been kind of bothering me because that's the truck I want. Low mileage, manual, dually, crew cab.
Southern truck.
Yep. Yeah, but it's bright red. I can't do that. That's just too much. So I'm searching. I'd like a GMT 400. I would do with a square body. Without the diesel. So the GMT 400s had the 6.5 diesel.
Yep.
Was it a 6.2 that was before that? It was,
yeah,
wasn't
6.2 non-turbo.
Yes, gutless.
Yeah.
Almost as bad as my 7.3 non-turbo that was in the F350. So, yeah, I'd really prefer a gas job, even though they're terrible on fuel. I'd just rather the gas job. Those 454s have more power than those naturally aspirated 7.3s.
Yeah.
I just want something a little bit more torquey and quicker down the road. Would rather have something with 411s or less, so I can get down the highway at decent speeds.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. That red truck, the quad cab manual that's in Louisville has 456s in it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, say goodbye to 70 miles an hour on the highway.
Yeah.
They rev out at 60 probably.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I mean, I'd love a rust-free Southern second-gen Dodge with a Cummins in it.
Yeah.
You can find those for around $8,000, and that's like the top of my budget. It's kind of like where I want to stay. I don't want to spend too much money on a truck. Dude, my Burgundy GMT 400 that I towed the Daytona in back, I paid $1,200 for that truck.
Crazy.
Man. Yeah, $1,200.
Yep.
I can't believe it. And the guy had gone to Florida every winter with it to tow his motorcycle down. He was a snowbird. So the truck didn't have any rust anywhere. It had like a little rust blister on the passenger side front fender.
Yeah.
But the chassis, bed rails, every cab corners, rockers, doors, everything was solid.
Yep.
$1,200. But he had finally upgraded. He bought a different truck and he was just like, want it out of my driveway.
Yeah,
and he was like 4 miles down the road from here. Found him on Marketplace. So I'm kind of praying for a situation like that.
Yeah, that's the ideal scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Want a truck, want to get to Riverside, want to get into that shop. And yeah, I'm still playing with the idea of selling the Century. So if I get into that shop, I can get the trunk setup done. To be honest, I haven't listed that car for sale because the trunk's not done.
Right.
All the air management stuff is just bolted to a piece of plywood in the trunk just to get it functioning for Ocean City and Riverside.
Yeah.
And so I want to do a nice trunk setup because I don't want to try to get what I want to get for that car without major things like that being done.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
I'm being patient. I want to make sure I get that done first and then possibly sell it. Maybe. I mean, luckily I do have a bunch of friends or people that are, kind of chomping at the bit for that car. So I'm like, well, maybe I could get what I want for it when I need it. But I'd rather keep it. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, dude.
I don't either, man. Join the club.
I know. I should just start a podcast and talking about like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't either. Like, oh, and then everyone else listening could be like, I don't know what I'm doing either.
Callers call in and talk about how you don't know what you're doing either.
Seriously. Does anyone have any advice for us? That should be the call-in.
Yeah.
Call-in should be someone who's a psychotherapist or psychologist. Someone like, this is how you should break down your mental thoughts.
Yeah. A podcast to take advice from the callers.
Yeah, please call me and give me advice. Are you a business owner? Have you stepped out on your own to start a business?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you do it? I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. And, I know people could argue that it's somehow working. And I could probably attest to that too. But I'm like, still feel like I don't have a tiger by the tail because it's not like I've got like a growing business that if I let go of it, it's going to eat me alive. But it feels that way sometimes where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And yeah. Well, that being said, let's talk about SOWO.
Yeah.
So you never got a chance to go.
Never. I was supposed to go in 15, but something came up. I don't even remember what. Never made it down.
Yeah.
Bummed about it.
So were you planning on taking a car or were you just going to ride down with some friends? Or?
I was going to go down with a friend.
Yeah.
And he had a B5 Audi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2015 turned out to be the last year. And it's probably, you would have had a good time in your own circle of friends, but for how small Helen, Georgia is, it was probably better you didn't go that year because I didn't go that year either, but I went 2012, 13, and 14, and they progressively significantly got worse each year.
Right.
And I watched 2015 from the internet, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't go down there.
Yeah.
The town's just so small. Small little town in the Smoky Mountains of Georgia. Small little place. And the amount of people that were starting to show up each year at SOWO, it just got overwhelmingly bad because there's just nowhere for anyone else to go. There's some surrounding towns that people will venture out to either get food or for lodging, because all the lodging in Helen packs up pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But man, at night, everybody's in Helen and it's just so crazy.
Yeah.
But so my experience, because you haven't been to Helen at all yet, right? Because you didn't go to Alpine Vag Fair.
Nope. No, I haven't been to Helen.
Yeah, so I guess technically I've been to Helen 4 times. 3 SOWOs, and then Alpine Vag Fair last year, almost 2 years ago.
Yep.
We're 2 days away from it being 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
But last spring, I took the 700 down. So I went 3 years for SOWO and then a 4th year for Alpine. And 2012, and you've heard these stories, but it'd be much.
But I'm here to listen,
yeah,
man.
it'll be awesome to like bounce these off people,
yeah,
or off you. So 2012, I was living in Nashville. And my plan was to take my 1969 Mercedes W108 there because I just moved to Nashville that earlier March. I think it was March. And I had my 69 W108. It's the first Mercedes I ever bought. And I was just over the moon with this car. And I'd bought it in the fall, so I really didn't get a chance to enjoy it much. I'd cut the springs and lowered it down and drove it for like a few weeks and then had to basically put it up for winter storage. So I didn't really get a chance to enjoy it too much. So when I moved to Nashville, my dad helped move me down. I didn't have a truck and trailer at that time. And, excuse me, I think, what did I have for a daily? I had my US Spec E23.
Okay, yeah,
I had my 735, and I sold that. I sold that to help fund the move and just figured I'd buy a daily when I got down to Nashville. So my dad helped me move. God bless his heart. Because he'd helped my sister move to Nashville. He'd helped her move. Well, at that point, he'd only helped her move to Nashville. So I was the next one. I was going to Nashville now too. And we trailered the W108 down, got settled in. And obviously that upcoming May was SOWO. So I was doing a bunch of work to the car. I'd put like some smaller tires on it to drop it down a little bit more. And we were maybe like a week away. It was close. It was like a week away from leaving. And I was going to be driving down with the whole like Murfreesboro, Nashville crew. And I was at one of their houses and shops one night in Murfreesboro and did an oil change on the 108 or something.
Yeah.
And I was heading back up 24, back up to Nashville. And it was after dark at this point. My friend Eric, who lived here with me for years, was going to be flying in and going down to SOWO with us like the next day. So it was within a few days of us leaving. So I'm driving up 24, heading up to Nashville at night. And I started going through this section of like new pavement, like new section of highway. It was clear that there was construction going on. And so I dropped down onto new pavement.
Yep.
So naturally you would expect a step up at some point.
Right.
But they had lined it. So the reflectors were gone. It was all fresh pavement with stripes and lines. And and it went on for quite a while. So then I just started zoning out. Now, like I said, I'd lowered the car and I'd done smaller tires recently. So now the engine cradle's like half inch off the ground. This car was like a skater.
Of course, yeah.
It was on the floor. And I'm driving along and you know, big ivory steering wheel in front of you, and you're looking out at that long bonnet with the star at the end of it. And it's dark, and the cars are low, and it's got old lights, and so you only see like 20 feet ahead of the car, really.
On a good night.
Yeah. And so I'm cruising along, but I'm on this new pavement for so long that I forgot that I dropped down onto it. But there's lines, so I'm like, oh, this is just it. It's just new highway.
Finished, I'm sure, yeah.
So I'm driving, and out of nowhere, here comes a shelf, like a cliff of pavement. Step up, like I'm looking up at these cliffs.
Oh my God.
and it's on top of me, and I'm cruising. I'm doing like 65 in this thing, in this big old Mercedes
drum
lead
brakes,
sled.
I'm sure.
Yep. And when you hard braked in that car, you pull to the right real hard so it stayed straight.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, and the Fintail did it to the left.
Yeah.
And I could have just taken the drums apart and like done wheel cylinders, because one was obviously grabbing more.
You only think about it when you're panic stopping, though.
I should fix that, or I should dial that in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the Fintail went to the left real hard, and the 108 went to the right real hard. But yeah, if you panic, I think they both went to the left.
Yeah.
And regardless.
Yeah.
When you braked hard in that car, you pulled the wheel to the opposite way it was pulling to keep you straight.
And to help brake.
It was the damnedest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had anyone who drove my Fintail, which was only like a couple people, I told them, I said, I know we're just going down the street, but if you have to panic stop, yank to the right on the steering wheel while you apply the brakes. Yep. I know this sounds really weird, but trust me, it'll keep us alive.
Yes, exactly.
You stood on the brakes and it would just put you in the opposite ditch, in the opposite lane first.
Yeah.
So I see this step up in the pavement.
Yeah.
I mean, like aggressive, like
every low car guy's worst nightmare.
Dude, like a raise the manhole cover.
Oh, man.
I kid you not, it was like 3 inches. I mean, it could have been 2 inches. I don't know. But like the engine cradle, my car's only a half inch off the ground.
Yep.
I mean, I remember looking under it. I was coming back from putting the smaller tires on, and I was like, I barely got out of the guy's driveway, and I'm like, ugh. I wonder about that construction on 24 I drove through on the way down here. So immediately I see this step up, this straight shelf, no paved bevel, no nothing. They just stopped the grinder and said, pack it up.
Oh man.
It's just a shelf. And so it was almost like Michael Jordan like reflexes in that, like, however close at 65, almost 70 miles an hour this was, in that very short window of time I had before I was going to hit this thing, I was able to discern like not to slam on the brakes because that would put my front end lower.
Yeah.
So I stomp on the throttle. I was hoping that I could just get it up, just
wheelie over it.
Well, I mean, in that scenario, that's the only thing you can do. You don't have any runoff. You don't have any room. I'm in the middle lane of like 4 lanes, or in one of those middle lanes.
Yeah.
So I can't like find the edge with the amount of space I have for the ground I'm covering. And I can't brake because that's going to stuff me into the ground more.
Yep.
So I put the pedal to the metal. And for what happened, it sounds so crazy that I stomped on the throttle because it's like I drove into the wall head on. Like I just said, here comes a freight train. I think I'll accelerate. That's exactly what happened.
I hate to laugh.
I laugh about it now. But dude, devastation. Like utter devastation. I broke everything. The motor just about came out of the car.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because for how tall the wall was on that cutout on the pavement was well up into my engine cradle, right? So that grabbed a hold of my engine cradle real well. Like real well. It's not like it hit the bottom and like sent the car into the air a little bit and like blew the pan or something. No. It hit the front of my engine cradle, not the bottom. It hit like the front of it, right? So it ripped the engine cradle like out of the car, broke the motor mounts, right? Both front motor mounts destroyed. It broke the pitman arm, had like this idler arm. Maybe pitman arm's not the right word, but it was like this idler arm that came down to my center link in the steering.
Yeah.
Snapped that right off, right? God. Broke that right off. When the motor mounts broke, it broke there was like a hard line off my radiator, and it broke that, and the motor went forward into the radiator. So the fan just ate that radiator up like it was nothing, like just shredded the radiator. And when it fell forward, it hit the pan, which blew the oil pan. And the friend of mine who ended up with this car later on he'll probably remember the destruction more than me because he's the one who went in and fixed everything.
Yeah.
But I remember the tranny, like the transmission cross member is really, like the engine cradle stayed in the car somehow, but the motor mounts broke. So the motor like fell to its side and forward inside the engine bay. And like the transmission mount somehow kept it like in the car. Like obviously it being bolted to the transmission too.
Yeah.
But so I'm driving. So in this second now, upon impact, I see it, stomp on the throttle, pow, and just parts and smoke in the cabin and and all the needles just go like, and I'm like, oh no, like oil pressure done, everything's gone.
It makes me think of when a jet is landing on an aircraft carrier and it
catches the cable.
It catches. And it's just like everything comes to a halt.
Man, well, except I kept rolling at 65. Oh yeah, I mean because that 69 didn't have seatbelts. Of course. My Fintail didn't either.
Pre-seatbelts.
Yeah, so when I hit that,
so you hit the windshield.
My chest, the big ivory steering wheel. I had a Mercedes steering wheel imprint on my chest.
That was the seatbelt.
Yeah, so I definitely put my chest into the steering wheel, but it didn't come to a stop. Like I plowed through it. It was like driving through a snowbank because I kept going. But what would normally happen to a snowbank happened to my car. My car was the snowbank.
Broken.
The road was moving and the car was sitting still and the car was the snowbank. So so it kept rolling. But the second I hit, like steering was all weird all of a sudden. Now I'm like fighting the thing to stay in the road and I'm like, oh, this is not good. And I say luckily, there was an exit right there. So I dipped off the exit. And when I came to a stop at the bottom of the exit, things like, go. And I'm like, ooh. And I stomped on the throttle and everything's vibrating, making all sorts of awful noises. Pulled into a gas station. I've got photos. Oh, they're not on my phone. I've got photos of it in that parking lot. I opened the hood and just smoke everywhere. And there's like coolant and oil. And I thought maybe transmission fluid, just stuff pouring out. It was everywhere. I mean, it was like running down the gutter into the drain. Oh yeah. Just absolute devastation.
Carnage.
And so one of the guys, one of the friends of mine had like AAA. I didn't have AAA at the time. And they were nice enough to use one of their tows. And I remember he loaded I was halfway between Murfreesboro and Nashville, and I remember he loaded the car up, and I rode with my buddy behind him, and I remember we were trying our best to keep up with him at like 80, 85 miles an hour, and I was joking like, "This is the fastest that car's ever gone."
Yeah,
ever, and so that there went my plans to drive that to SOWO, and I was so bummed because at that time there wasn't like anyone in that area like
doing those
driving
cars.
like big old 60s Mercedes.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to like bring that car that year, and just there was no fixing that car in a few days.
Oh no.
No way. Without like a full shop that you can put the thing up on the lift and
And
drop.
a parts car and yeah.
Yeah. So 2012, I just rode down with all the guys from Tennessee, and it was still a good year, but it was a bummer I didn't have the car there. I ultimately sold the car as broken, for way more than I paid for it, which was great because I mean I got a deal on it from a guy who had owned it since like it was, maybe since the 70s or something, and sold it to a friend of mine from Milwaukee, who ended up so they restored the whole car. First of all, his father had a his name was Mike Mert. And his dad had like a restoration shop, so they went to the right home. And
perfect.
They came down from Milwaukee, like I don't know how 12 hours, however far of a drive it was, and restored the whole car, interior, exterior, everything, all the wood in the interior.
That's awesome.
And they put a small block Chevy in it. Now that sounds like well, of course they did, but they machined these like custom valve covers that had the Mercedes emblem on it, and like they made it look like an OEM V8 in a Mercedes. But they shaved the engine bay, resprayed the engine bay. Like it was a beautiful, beautiful car.
That's cool.
And he ran the Sentra OEM Plus Mercedes like Sentra wheels. Mm-hmm. Redid all the suspension. They did a whole new coil suspension and dropped it down a little bit. Not as low as I had it, but it was like, it looked good.
It was safe low.
Yeah. And I'll go through 2013 SOWO, but Mike drove that car to SOWO in 2014, and I have a photo of that car and my Corvair on that famous bridge in Helen overlooking the Smokies with those two cars together.
That's awesome.
And I was like, that is the coolest thing.
That's a story.
And Speed Hunters featured the Mercedes down in Helen that year.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Heck yeah.
I didn't take any credit for that car. It was just cool that it was mine before it was Mike's.
Yep.
Because that car was just a stock car and cut springs with small tires and a lot of devastation on the road. But Mike and his dad like restored that whole car. That car was beautiful. And him, his brother, and I think one other friend, they went 3 deep and drove it from Milwaukee. 30 hours, however long it took them, maybe 25.
Yeah.
It takes me 24 to get to Helen from here.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're just as far,
right?
Just as far north. But anyway, that was the fate of that car, my first Mercedes when I had it. And so I'm happy it went to a good home, and Mike totally brought that car back.
That's awesome.
But 2013, so at midway 2012, I moved back home to New Hampshire in like 2012, but it was like July. I moved back here to New Hampshire. And in that time, within a month of being home, I found the 1960 Fintail.
Yep.
Started that project. And then I bought my 190, that 5-speed 190.
Yep, that's right.
Actually, right down the street from where you were just working.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
I bought that right on 125.
Epping area, somewhere in there.
Yep. I think it was technically Brentwood.
Yep.
But so I bought the 190, had been searching for a 5-speed forever. This was the winter at this point. It was just going in the winter because I had the E12.
Yeah.
It was coming in the spring. That's what it was.
Yeah, because the E12 is your winter
beater. Daily. Yeah, the control arms touch the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking to static little cars. I didn't learn my lesson at all.
Static dad.
Man. So I dailied an E12 BMW on 15-inch wide Steelies, cut the springs, took the sway bar out, dumped that car on the ground. I still, to this day, when I share a photo of it on Instagram, I have people who have E12s or whatever, or E28s or whatever, and they're like, what'd you do to get it that low?
Cut everything?
I'm like, I took the sway bar out and cut the springs.
Yeah.
And it honestly didn't ride that bad.
Yeah.
It honestly didn't ride that bad.
I mean, it had nowhere to go other than...
No. Just off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I had an inch of travel and it was barely an inch off the ground, that's all you wanted for travel. Yeah. And the 15-inch wide Steelies with like 165 45s made the thing super low.
Jeez.
But I sold that. It was a crazy scenario because at the time I was just living paycheck to paycheck. So if I wanted another car, I'd have to sell one to purchase the next one.
Yeah.
So I had the Fintail that was bagged, that was put away for the winter. I was dailying the E12, and I decided I wanted to sell it, kind of. Well, no, I didn't decide I wanted to sell it. There was a kid on Instagram that kept hitting me up. He was from Vermont, and he kept saying, do you want to sell the E12? And I'm like, maybe at some point, but not right now. I had just gotten it to where I was really, really stoked on it. Dan Crosley had just come up and shot it. All those all those good photos I have of that car, looking over the lake and stuff, Dan took. So once I got those photos from him, I was like, this car's amazing. I want to keep this thing.
Yep.
So this one kid kept hitting me up. Not to the point of nuisance, but like to the point where he would start the next message with, "Hey man, I really don't want to bother you, but I really want to buy that car."
Yeah.
So I ended up thinking, well, maybe I'll put like a don't want to sell it price on the car, see what he thinks. Because I hadn't even given him a number.
Yeah.
I paid like $1,200 for that car. I did a starter in it, which might have been like $80 or something. And then the lowering kit was free.
The lowering kit. $6 for a cutoff wheel.
Dude. And the wide steelies, 5 on 4 3/4.
Yeah.
GM.
Yeah.
5 on 120.7 technically.
Exactly.
I found the wide steelies on Craigslist in Enfield, which is like 40 minutes from here.
Yeah.
For $75. I think he wanted 80.
Yeah.
And I offered him 50. I offered him 50. He goes, "Give me 75." And I was like, "All right."
Yeah.
$75. And they were awful, but they were steels. So I came home, sandblasted them, and then painted them white. And the E12 was like this dark blue, so the color worked. And so I had like $1,400 out of that whole car. Like slammed, wide steelies. They looked awesome.
Yeah.
I took the front bumper off because that's a shark car. Those first E12s were sharks. And took the front bumper off to really accentuate the shark nose of it. And then I drilled and tucked the rear US spec bumper. So it had this real nice compact look. That was a center exhaust exit on the E12s. So I built like a dual tip that kind of like stingered up a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot, just enough to look sporty. And kept it quiet, kept the muffler on it. And I was dating this girl in Rochester, New York at the time. And it was like an 8-hour drive to her. She worked in Boston a lot, so we didn't really have like a long-term relationship or long-distance relationship throughout the couple of years that we dated.
Yeah.
But I drove that car middle of winter at that ride height all the way out across Hogback Mountain in Vermont, across upstate New York, all the way out to Rochester. 3-speed automatic. That car was one of the most reliable. The problem is the blower motor didn't work.
Yeah.
So you had to be in motion to get heat in the car.
Yeah.
So if I was sitting with it idling, there was no heat coming in.
Yeah.
You got cold quick. But when you were moving, you had plenty of good heat. Heater core was good.
Was that an M10 in that?
No, it was an M30 in that.
Oh, M30. Yeah, that's right.
So it had an even bigger motor than the first E30s did.
Yeah.
So it was a 6-cylinder. I always assumed it was an M20, but then as I had the car, I read up on it, and I bought M30. It from the Courier Boys.
That's right.
So they had just done a whole brand new top end on that motor.
Dang.
Cylinder head, everything. Like everything was brand new on that motor. I don't remember what failed, if they lost the head gasket or what. And but they had just done a bunch of work to it. And this one guy that kind of like just bummed around their shop and worked for him ended up with the car, and so he was the one selling it. And he needed like cigarettes, 6-pack, and like lottery ticket money, so he sold it to me for like $1,200.
Of course.
It was on Craigslist though. It was on Craigslist for like 15.
Yeah.
I offered him like 1,000. He's like, "Yeah, give me $1,200." And I saw I had hard eyes for that car anyway, because first of all, you never see E12s.
You don't
ever. And even back in 2012 when I bought this thing, late 2012. And it was right up the road here on the corner of Route 3 and 113, right before their shop. It just sat right there with a for sale sign. I'm like, I have to buy this car. It's a shark nose E12 that's like 3 miles up the street from my house. For like $1,500.
Yeah.
So so I scooped that car. And so anyway, this one kid just had to have it. So I said, all right, man, like it's my daily driver. So if I sell it, I need to find something else. So I'll if you're interested in it, I'll sell it for $3,000. And he goes, "Yeah, okay." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like you'll take it?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right." I said, "Well, give me a couple of days to look for a car, and then we'll finalize it." So for years, I had wanted a 5-speed 190. For years, couldn't find one.
Yep.
Like, and I wanted an early model. I wanted a 2.3 4-cylinder 5-speed. I'd found a couple 5-speed 2.6s, like the large door cladding, the 6-cylinder, like later model ones.
Yep.
But they'd been clapped out. The specific ones I found that were manuals were in pretty rough shape. So I'd passed on them. Couldn't find, and I wasn't looking coast to coast, but within reasonable distance of where I wanted to go to get a car, I couldn't find a 5-speed 190.
Yeah.
So I just, the first time when I tell him, I'm like, all right, I'll sell the car if you're interested. And he goes, yeah. So that night I went on Craigslist and found that 5-speed 190 an hour from my house in Brentwood, New Hampshire.
Yep.
For like,
when the stars align.
dude, I couldn't. I mean, this is what's so insane, and you don't know unless you look. You know what I mean? So, lo and behold, here's a first year. Well, technically second year. It was in '85. I think '84 was the first year of the 190.
Yeah.
But it was an early model, 2.3 4-cylinder, smoked silver with the oxblood red interior, and a 5-speed OEM 5-speed manual for like $2,500.
Golden.
An hour from my house. So I immediately texted this other kid back that was interested in E12, and I was like,
come right
hey,
now.
let's do this.
Yeah, come right now.
Yeah, and he goes, oh, I don't have my license. And I'm trying to move on this 190, but I'm literally in one of these situations where I don't have the money to lock up the 190.
Yeah.
I didn't have an extra $2,500.
Yeah. And he started the fire, so.
Yes, yes. So at this point, I just moved home from Tennessee. I'm a few months in. I'd spent all my money on the fintail and bagging that, and like, so that was like, so now I'm looking for a daily. I did not have $2,500 at all to spend on this 190 to lock it up while I sorted out this guy. So I was like, hey, can you get down here this weekend? I found a car. I'll move on it, and the E12's yours. And he's like, I forgot how he first said it. He might have just straight up said like I don't have my license, so I can't come get it. And I was like, you don't have your license because you lost it? And he goes, no, I'm 15. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like,
how long was he trying to buy this car from you too?
Since he was 14? I don't know. For months.
Yeah, yeah.
And so now I'm like, come on, kid, give me something real. I said, I'm not gonna. So now I'm assuming he's paying for the car with his parents' money.
Exactly.
He's 15.
Yeah.
I don't know his situation, but I'm assuming this. And I said, listen, man, like I need like some sort of like guarantee or something. I said, all sales are final. Like, I don't want you going home with this car and your parents being like, what on earth, what kind of box have you just bought?
Or like he brings his dad to buy the car and he gets all the way down here and it's this slammed BMW and his dad's like, no, you're not buying this.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, something like that.
So I'm like, I don't like this at all. And he goes, no, it's my money. It's because I didn't say, you spending your parents' money on this thing. I just basically voiced some concerns where I was like, I said, this is a slammed car that's like difficult to drive. It's on wide wheels, small tires. It's an old car. It's an 81 BMW.
Parts aren't everywhere.
And parts will break on this car.
Yeah.
It's an old BMW. Like, you're always going to be working on this car. And I was transparent about everything with him. And I said, if you're 15 years old and this is going to be like your daily driver, like, I don't want you going home with this car and your parents making you bring it back.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
And so he was like, so now I'm getting super frustrated because I'm trying to keep this other kid on ice that's trying to sell the 190.
Yep.
That's the car. That's the 5-speed 190 that like I've been looking for.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, it's my money. I worked for it. It's my money. Like, it's good. It's all good.
Good.
And I'm like, all right, man. Well, when can you come get it? And he's like, can you deliver it? And I was like, no, I can't. Like, what? Where are you? And he's like, Burlington. That's like 2.5 hours from here, one way.
Yeah.
In the middle of the winter. And I'm like, man. I said, I don't know. Is there any way you can get down here with some friends? 2 friends that have licenses.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't think so. Like, not in the next couple of weeks at least. And I was like, oh man. So, he goes, listen. He goes, oh my gosh, I can't remember. It might have been 35. He goes, I'll give you $3,500 if you deliver it to me.
Well, dang.
And I was like, done. I was in the living room here, and Eric, my buddy who came out for SOWO 2012.
Yeah.
He was sitting on the other chair, and I was just like, what are you doing this weekend? Because he had a truck, and I'm like, if I pay you gas, lunch, and breakfast, and coffee, or whatever, you want to give me a ride back from Burlington? He goes, yeah, that's okay, man. He didn't really have anything going on that weekend. I texted the kid back and I'm like, we're coming.
Yep.
We drove up there, and I've never told this story, I don't think, but we drove up there, and the whole time I'm like, man, do I really want to get rid of this? But then I keep thinking about the 5-speed 190.
Of course.
So in the meantime, I PayPal'd the dude like $100 to like hold it. I'm like, just hold it for the weekend. I'll be there Sunday. Because Saturday we went up to deliver the E12. And so we drove up there, and I loved that car to death, that E12. I mean, I've still always wanted one since. Yeah. They've obviously become more valuable since 2012. But,
yeah, of course.
Excuse me. So we drive up there, get to the kid's house, and nice enough kid. We've stayed in touch on like Facebook and stuff. He brought the car out to Wolfscart when I had the 190 there when it was done.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we get up there, and nice enough kid. He's there with his brother, who's also a nice kid. Young kids. I mean, they're 15.
Of course, yeah.
They come outside. No parents around. They just came outside. like they'd done this 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, man, like really appreciate it. And like I had it on the stock wheels for the drive up there, and the white steelies were in the car, and he's kind of walking around it, and didn't really have too many like technical questions about it because he's 15.
Right. Yeah.
And but I'm trying to tell him all the things. I'm like, sometimes it does this or it does that. Like, here's a good, go to autohouseaz.com if you want to buy parts for it. They've got a lot of parts for these cars, and trying to give him like a quick little run of the mill, like walk around
introduction to the car. Yeah.
Or to vintage BMW.
Yeah.
Vintage BMW ownership.
Yeah.
So it came down to bill of sale, and as I'm filling out the bill of sale, I'll never forget this. 15-year-old kid takes out a full-blown Jersey knot, like just a wad of money, right?
A Jersey knot.
Yeah, like pulls out a wad of money.
Yeah.
And just kind of licks his thumb, and just pulls out $3,000 and gives it to me, and puts the knot back in his pocket.
In Burlington, Vermont? What do you...
I'm like, this kid's selling weed.
He's gotta be. But he's got a buddy up in Canada delivering.
He gave me $3,000 and there was still a wad of money left. Put the wad of money in his pocket. 15-year-old kid. I'm like, what?
What am I doing with my life?
I'm like, I'm using all this money you just gave me and buying another like box of a German car. All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. And I had forgotten it until we were talking about this story.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I remember talking to Eric the second we got in the truck to leave. I was like, "Did you see the amount of money?" I think Eric might have brought it up. Eric's like, "Did you see the amount of money he had left after he gave you $3,000?" I'm like, "Yeah, he had another $6,000 in his pocket."
Oh my god!
So I thought that was kind of crazy. It might not have been, but I remember it looking like there was more left than what he'd given me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that kid's allowance is wild, or whatever he's got his business in.
Yeah.
At 15. But anyway. So went and got the 190. This is the car, as you know. This is the car I took to SOWO in 2013. So this is kind of like a long-winded,
2013
precursor to this story.
Yeah.
But so I went and bought the 190. Elated. I went right down 125 when I test drove it, shifting gears in that 190. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like the next best thing to having a Cosworth, I'm like, I'm shifting an OEM 190. And here in America, they're super rare in a manual.
Yeah.
Like in Europe and England and stuff, they're all like diesels and manuals. You can it's just like,
and they all want the automatics.
Yeah, exactly. For the touring aspect of
it.
So came home with it and drove it for barely any time. I drove it for like a week maybe, and immediately pulled it in the shop and got to work. I'm like, I'm bagging this thing. And at the time, I didn't know anyone or of any car on the internet for that matter that was a 190 that was bagged.
Yeah.
I didn't know of a single one. I'm sure there had been some that had been bagged, but at the time, in 2012, I didn't know of any bagged 190s.
Yep.
And Patrick from Berlin, who's the Snap-on.
Yes, that's right.
He had a beautiful bagged 190 right around the same time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about his car until after I finished mine. So I don't know when he finished his. But regardless, they were more or less like a track car or a sporty car. I didn't know of any that had... So I didn't know if I was going to catch any flack from people. Oh, what are you doing bagging that car?
Yeah.
I'd always wanted the bag one. So I was like, let's do it. So there's nothing available for, components, suspension components.
No kits.
So I just ran universal bags, and since you have bagged your 190, you obviously have heard this story plenty of times.
Yeah.
But I ended up bagging it like budget built brackets for the rear. The front was really difficult to get a bag large enough to handle the weight of the car, but not rub on either the shock or the frame rail in the front there.
Right.
So took Took like 3 different designs to get something in there because I tried sleeve bags and they just didn't have enough to like. It would hold the car up and it would handle well, but when it was aired down, it wouldn't project the car up.
Right.
It would just kind of inflate
out.
Yeah. So ended up with a bellow bag and and didn't do the E36 conversion thing.
Yeah.
This is before I knew of anyone even doing that. But I ran R129 upper mount so I could get my shock travel.
Yeah.
And ran Saab 90 rear shocks and
and
so anyway, I got the car like laid out, like control arms on the ground, and I did the clutch SL1 wheels because my buddy Russ owned clutch at the time.
That's right.
And I didn't know how big they were in the JDM scene, but Russ hooked me up. He re-drilled the wheels for me and sent them to me for like mega cheap. And I'm like, this is awesome. You know, so I ran those wheels because I knew the guy that was running the company and stuff. And because naturally I'd rather have RSs on it, but for what he would send me those wheels for, opposed to a few grand for RSs, I'm like, yeah, sign me up. But they worked on the car. They had that mesh style, and
they were 16s too, right?
16s, 16x9 all around.
Okay. Yeah.
I built adjustable upper control arms in the rear so I could dial my camera in.
Yeah.
When I first finished the car, like when it went to SOWO, I was tucking the rear wheels, so I had quite a bit of camber in the rear, which I kind of wasn't too much of a fan of. But I liked the fact that the car could air all the way out and lay flat front to back. I liked that. Yeah. And being a small car, you didn't see that often. You know, the smaller cars always had like a little bit of rake to them.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I went to a fender to lip fitment front and rear. And the car looked just as good in my opinion, but it did have that like E36 rake to it.
Yeah.
But its first rendition, it laid flat out. And so SOWO 2013, the way this story came about, excuse me. I haven't done this much talking in a long time. My voice is like, my throat's super dry. I'm like, do I have COVID again?
Yep.
So I didn't have any plans. Okay, here's what happened. It's all coming back to me now. I did write some notes down.
Yeah.
But in February of 2013, the girl I was dating in Rochester, her and I were still together, and we ended up being together throughout all of 2013. But we were planning on going to SOWO. She took the time off from work, and we were planning it out. So I was working for my friend Dan in the turf management business.
That's right. Yeah.
Agricultural business. And I told him that, I'd been working for him the year prior. No, I wasn't, because I was living in Nashville the year prior. Long story short, I took the time off. I was like, hey, at the end of May, I'm going to be going to the show in Georgia. And he's like, okay. So he gave me the week. And I'd worked for him for a few years before I moved to Nashville. So he knew that I was, off and about for these car shows and stuff. So he gave me the week, a few months in advance. At some point in like March maybe, or by the end of February, Pauline, the girl I was dating, she worked in the biotech industry for like a Japanese company.
Yeah. And
something came up in her work and she was going to have to go to Tokyo at the end of, or somewhere. She had some business engagement that she would have to attend or join or whatever. So she wasn't going to be able to go anymore.
Right.
So at that point, there was a lot I wanted to do in the car. And so I just decided I won't go. If she's not going, I just won't go. So I told Dan that in like March.
Yeah.
2 months ahead. I was like, no, Pauline can't go. So I'll be here. And he's like, okay. So that was just what it was. So I was like, I'm not going anymore.
Of course.
So the week of SOWO, but before that upcoming weekend of the show, obviously everybody's in town.
Of course.
So this was like Wednesday, right? So 2 days before the show, everybody's down there. Everyone who's gonna be there from like long distance are already there. So all like my realm of social media like content is coming from Helen, Georgia.
Flooded with Helen.
It'd be like not going to H2O the week of H2O, and it's all you see.
Yeah.
Like the algorithm's like, oh yeah, we know this is what you want to see.
Yeah.
So it's a Wednesday night, and at the time, Eric still lived with me, and my friend Rob lived with me. Rob had Ross Couples' Mark I Polo,
the Polo
recently, that silver Polo.
Yeah.
And that Sam bagged.
That's right. Yeah.
So Rob was obviously into cars. Eric's into cars. And we're just in the living room watching like TV or whatever, just zoning out, doing our own thing. Mm-hmm. We're probably all three of us just glued to our phones.
Yeah.
And so I'm scrolling through Instagram, and all I see is SOWO stuff. And I'd been the year prior, so I knew like what Helen was like and how much fun it was. And I've got 2 cars. Now, obviously, I'm not taking the Fintail to Georgia. I didn't have a truck and trailer. So So I'm just looking through and I'm like, I'm super envious of everyone down there. And
of course,
all my friends have finished their cars and they're coming out, and I'm like, so my brain's turning. I'm like, all right. And I'm thinking about the drive there.
Yeah.
I look over to Rob and Eric and I'm like, you guys want to go to Georgia this weekend for SOWO? And I remember they like look up. Like Rob might have been on his laptop and they like both looked up and they're like, they kind of look at each other. And one or the both of them are like, well, we got work Friday and Monday. And I was like, I do too. But do you guys want to go to SOWO? And they're like, sure.
Yeah.
And so my buddy Chris Decato also wanted to go. So there was 3 of us. And so I texted Chris and I was like, because I'm trying to figure out how we can split this 4 ways and it could be cheap. You know, 'cause I didn't budget for this. I'm like, I don't know what's going on this weekend. So I texted Chris and I'm like, hey, we're thinking of going to SOWO this weekend. You want in? He goes, yep. And I'm like, all right. So I showed up to work Thursday morning and I told Dan, I'm like, hey, so, because I was hoping we could like leave like Friday. Like they could probably, the other guys could probably get off Friday. Chris didn't have to work Friday or like that Monday. And he's like, let's just go for like, I'm like, we can't. Like everyone else has to work. So I remember getting into work and like telling Dan, I was like, so remember that show in Georgia that I was going to go to?
That I canceled?
And he's like, yeah. And I was like, that's this weekend. And he goes, and he says something about like, we're working. And I was like, yeah, but I might still go. And he's like, he said something, he's the nicest dude in the world. But I think at this point, he was like frustrated with my like traveling and stuff. And he's like, you're here at 7 a.m. on Monday.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm thinking, I think I can make that work, but I don't know.
And still work a full day on Monday.
I'd reach deep for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope I can physically make it home for 7 a.m. And so I was hoping, because once he was like, we work a full day tomorrow and you got to be here at 7 a.m. on Monday. I'm thinking, oh, damn it. There's my window of time.
Yeah.
It's a 24-hour drive. Google will tell you 20. It's always 24.
Always more.
Always.
Yeah.
Traffic
Especially
and
in
stops
Northeast.
and fuel and then you get food and you got to stop to go to the bathroom. It's always about 24 hours. So I'm like, well, we got to work a full day tomorrow too. So did Rob. Rob worked construction. Eric was a tech, an automotive tech, and Chris Decato worked like logistics for like a machining company or something. So I worked 6 to 4. I went in like early.
Yeah.
I was going to usually put in like a 7 to 5. So I went in like real early. I told Dan, I said, because I worked out of my own truck with Dan. So I basically I worked in turf management. So I'd either aerate lawns or fertilize lawns or whatever. I had my own machine. And so I'd been working with him long enough now where I could just make my own route.
Right.
So I said, listen, if I do this route on Friday, I can do industrial accounts early in the morning and work in the residential accounts like midday. So I'm not on people's lawns at like 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I was like, if I punch out that route, can I bail? And he knew I was like a good worker. I wasn't going to just like,
of course,
not, do the work. So he's like, yeah, you get that route done, you can go. And I'm like, all right. And I remember like speeding from spot to spot.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got out at like 4, shop's right down the street here, and was waiting on Eric and Rob to get home. So they get home. We pack the car. I've got photos of us packing the car even because I'm like, we're doing it. I remember posting a photo on Instagram of us packing the 190, and it was Friday at 5 p.m. We got a 24-hour drive. Well, I take it back. That whole 24-hour thing, we somehow got down there in like 20 hours.
Yeah.
So it was like 5 p.m. I think we hit the road. And people were like, you're coming? I'm like, we're coming.
Yeah.
Like, aren't you in New Hampshire? I'm like, yep, we're hammering all the way through the night. We're not going to stop. We're just going to hammer. So we left at, it did turn out to be just about 20 hours, a little over 20, because we left at 5 p.m., hammered through the night. And I'll talk about the drive. Yeah. But we basically arrived in Helen, Georgia at like 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon. Right.
Dang.
So,
yeah, that's
hammered. Yeah. So, I mean, that's like, what, 22 hours, something like that. So we get on the road. I'm driving. It's my car. Here's the deal. 190s are the smallest Mercedes saloons aside from like the R107s.
Yeah.
Or R129s at that point. It was the smallest saloon, like E-Class car, basically. Yep. Well, it's smaller than E-Class. And Eric is 6'5" and not heavy set, but not like a string bean either. Like he's a big boy. And and I'm meaning by big boy because I know Eric listens to this. Eric, I know you're not fat. He's just a big dude. He's like 6'5" or even taller, just a big guy. And Chris Decato is like 6'4", maybe 6'3", and like a big dude too.
Yeah.
And then Rob and I are comparable in build,
Yeah.
shorter, a little bit smaller. But the four of us, with all of our luggage, a spare tire, air suspension management in the trunk, are packed into this 190, right?
Yeah.
And I've got like an analog, like push button, electronic solenoid, like air suspension set up in the car at the time.
That's
with
right.
Needle gauges.
Yeah.
And rear bags maxed out.
Oh.
And we were still tucking like an inch of lip in the rear. Like inch of wheel was tucked in the rear, which means I had a ton of camber. And I'm at like 110, 115 PSI in the back.
Dang.
And those Universal Airhouse 2s are probably like a 120 max PSI or something.
Yeah.
So whenever we'd go over a bump, they'd go 130, 140. And I was like, oh.
For 24 hours straight,
I'm like,
down.
Yeah, we got to come back too. I'm
Yeah.
like, please don't blow a bag. I didn't have an extra bag on me. Nowadays, I keep an extra bag. Like I've got an extra bag in the Corvair, and just in case I blow one. And so I'm like, oh, I hope this doesn't blow. So anyway, we get on the road. I've worked a 10-hour day, and probably didn't sleep well the night prior either because I'm like thinking about everything I got to do. Yeah, I've got to like, all right, I got to work, and then I got to pack, and then make sure the car's good.
Yeah.
We just decided a day ago that we're going to be doing this. And so we hit the road, and we only had like a few hours of driving light, because it, obviously got dark around like 8 o'clock or something. And we got to Connecticut, and I started dealing with that EHA valve issue.
Yeah.
Where it acted like the fuel pump was giving out.
Yeah.
So you'd be driving and it would start to sputter, or it'd act like you're running out of fuel basically. And you had no throttle response. The thing would just buck and do its own thing. And then sometimes it would just quit.
Yep.
And that's it. So one time it straight up quit, and we had to pull off to the side of the road, and it wasn't dark yet. And it like randomly, once it cooled down, it turned on just fine and ran fine, and we just kept going.
Yeah.
And a couple other times we had to stop, and I had to actually pull that EHA valve out, which is like under the bonnet, under the air filter, behind like the fuel DPR, like that. That was like that Jetronic, weird electronic mechanical injection system.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like the step above CIS basically.
Yeah.
And so we kind of battled with that for a little bit in the Northeast. Got food. Once we got to Jersey, it was midnight. Yeah, it was about 6 hours in. It was midnight. And Eric reminded me of this because I completely forgot about it. When I posted on Instagram that I was going to be telling these stories, Eric, I kind of put like, what are some of your memories of these trips? Like if you saw me down there. And a bunch of people kind of talked about, when they saw the Corvair, when they saw the 190. And Eric reminded me of this part because I completely forgot about it. But we're driving. First of all, everyone's sleeping.
Yeah.
Except at this point.
Including you.
Yeah, I'm asleep at the wheel. So we're on the Jersey Turnpike, and it's dark. And first of all, and I think I'm the only person to see this, unless one of the other guys was awake. First, Eric was up front with me for quite a while. We kept Eric and Chris at alternating, like they were across from each other. No matter where. Well, I drove the whole way, so they just kept swapping.
Yeah.
We couldn't put them on the same side of the car because they were like way bigger than Rob and I. We just tried to equalize weight distribution.
Yeah.
And at some point on the Jersey Turnpike somewhere, I watched a full-blown meteor fly across. I mean, I could see the flames basically behind it as it went across the horizon. It looked, and obviously perception and perspective is like totally weird when you see something like that, but it looked so close. It looked like I was going to be able to see where it was going to hit.
Yeah.
Like it didn't look like it was going to burn up. It looked like it was heading for land,
That's crazy.
So it cast like shadows, almost like that Russian one that landed in Russia a couple years ago. It like full blown across the sky, and I was like, whoa, did you guys see that? And everyone's asleep. I'm like, oh, whatever. So not too long after that, I'm in the fast lane on the turnpike at a point where it's like 3 or 4 lanes wide, at least 3 lanes wide. And I'm overtaking some cars, and I'm not a fast lane camper.
Yeah.
Like if there's no one else, I'm like in the slow lane or in the middle lane at best.
Yeah.
So I remember overtaking this van. This van was in the middle lane. It's like a Honda Odyssey or something.
Yeah.
Or a Caravan. And I got into the fast lane to overtake him. And I'm cruising at like 80 maybe. And this guy was cruising at like 65. I could see him coming up like real fast. I'm like, whoa. So I get into the fast lane, overtake him. And there was like a couple other cars I overtook. So I stayed in the fast lane for quite a while. And then out of nowhere, I see these headlights coming up in the middle lane real fast as I'm about to merge back over into the middle lane. So I'm like, oh, so I got back into the fast lane.
Yep.
And it's that van. And it blows by me like super fast, but then like slams on the brakes and then takes off again and slams on the brakes. And I'm staying in the middle lane, like just keeping an eye on this guy. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So then I woke Eric up. I think Eric was riding shotgun. At this point, I think everybody woke up because I was like, look at what this guy, like, what is this guy doing? I figured I might need witnesses if something crazy happens. So he's slamming on the brakes and accelerating or whatever. And then he started like wandering and then back again and then wandering over the line into our lane and then back again.
That's terrifying.
So now I'm like keeping him ahead of me so I can just like watch from afar, make sure I stay clear of anything. And he started to wander like into our lane and then he just stayed in our lane. So then I just kind of stayed behind him. I'm like, I'm just going to see what happens. Then he started to drift to the left even more when he got over the rumble strip. And then like once he got on the rumble strip, he came back into the lane. Then he'd go to the right a little bit, and then he'd come back. And I'm like, I don't know if this guy's drunk or he's falling asleep or is something wrong. I don't know. So then he listed lazily to like the rumble strip, got on the rumble strip, went to the right, and then out of nowhere to the left hard and just to the barrier, like just bang to the barrier.
Man.
And like literally like took the mirror off, glass, like we've got debris cut up over the car.
Oh,
like,
no.
just took the whole side of the van off. Like just because he was just kind of lazily drifting. Then out of nowhere, it's just like it just jerked the wheel.
Yeah.
And just right on the Jersey Turnpike through there, it's just like this real tall concrete Jersey barrier.
That's
basically.
right. Yeah.
And he slammed into that thing so hard, blew the side mirror off. I don't know if it broke a side window, but there was a ton of glass that went up over our car. And now he's like drifting way over to the right and then hits the guardrail again. Like, or not the guardrail, but the Jersey barrier. So he's made contact.
Something's definitely wrong with him.
He's made contact twice now. Yeah. And the second time was just a hard hit. I mean, like passenger wheels almost came off the ground. You know, when he hit the thing, came back in the lane, started drifting to the right again. Once he got to the middle lane, freaking booked it. Like just throttle up, like full throttle. Here we go. So I'm standing on it to keep up with him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need a plate number because I don't know what's going on.
Exactly. You have to. Yeah.
So I drop a gear and I'm standing on it. And that poor little 2.3 is doing everything it could to keep up with this V6 Odyssey or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm doing 90 to keep him in sight. And we're coming around this corner and there's a field of cars. Like not stopped, but just thick.
Slow.
Thick, slow moving traffic. All lanes.
Not doing 100.
And he's heading into them like at 100 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
Just heading in super fast. And I remember thinking, like, we're about to watch a multi-car disaster here. Like, this guy's just going to ping-pong his way across all these cars. And somehow he navigated his way through all the cars and was just gone.
Jeez.
As quickly as he came, he was gone. And that was it. That's the end of that story.
Drugs.
Had to have been. Drugs and alcohol. And I don't even know. But it was so bizarre because, you know, he drifted around for quite a while. He figured out maybe he's falling asleep and the rumble strip woke him up.
Yeah.
But something happened and something spooked him and he careened into that Jersey barrier.
Jeez.
Just cleaned up the side of the driver's side of that van and cleaned it up over my car.
Oh man.
Yeah, pretty wild. And then then like cannonballed his way into a bunch of traffic and somehow Sterling mossed his way through it. Insane. Yeah. So that was the most action we saw on the trip.
Yeah, but that's quite a bit of action for one trip. A meteor and then
all within like 10 minutes. Yeah, like those two things happened like back to back.
Yeah.
And so I drove through the night. Everybody slept. After that thing, everybody, that was crazy. And just everybody fell back to sleep.
Yeah.
Rob, I kid you not, Rob slept the whole drive.
Yeah.
Like we didn't hear or see from him the whole trip.
Yeah.
I've got photos of him and Eric in the back too. Rob has like a sweatshirt over his face and just
I think I've seen that
just looks
photo.
like a corpse in my
dead.
backseat. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, some people just can't hang. You know? Like I worked a full 10-hour day. You know.
Yeah.
So I drove. Coffee destroys you.
Yeah. I keep burping.
So they were destroyed. They were sleeping. I drove all the way to North Carolina. Right. So I just hammered through the whole night. Sun's up now.
Yep.
We've already made a Waffle House stop.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Everyone's back to sleep again, and I'm on fumes. It's like 10 a.m. Yeah, maybe 10ish. We had like another 4 hours to go, and I'm like, I'm done. I can't. My tank's empty.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So Rob's like, oh, I'm too tired. I'm like, of course you are. I'm sleeping this whole time. And so Chris was like, I'll drive.
Yeah.
I'll drive. I'm like, all right, thanks, man. So Rob and Eric got in the back seat. I sat shotgun, and I'm on fumes. So I'm trying, every time this happens, I don't end up falling asleep. I end up like being awake somehow.
Yeah.
And it's my car, so I'm watching air pressure gauges. I had a slow leak in my left front bag, so I told him like, you got to keep an eye on that one needle.
Yeah.
Like every 20 minutes, just give that button a push and just get it back up a little bit. And so that was a super nuisance. But so I'd try to get comfortable and try to shut my eyes, and then I'd scare myself awake. And I never really fell asleep. I'd kind of look at fuel gauge. How's the temp? Everything looks good. Okay. Like But I kid you not. Within a half hour, 30 minutes, Chris is doing this.
Oh no.
Like squinty eyed and yawning, but he's yawning loud.
Yeah.
Like he's like,
yeah.
Like loud. And I'm like, you all right? He goes, I don't know, man. I'm real tired. And I was like, freaking pull over. And he pulls over and I'm like, give me that steering wheel.
Yeah.
And I just drove us the rest of the way. I'm not even going to put up with this. You babies can sleep. I'll drive us there.
Yeah.
So he drove for like a half hour maybe, like until he was like, I'm tired.
Oh man.
And I'm like, get the car off the road.
Yeah.
We had Waffle House a second time, and then I fueled up and hammered. I'm like, I'm just driving us there. You lot of babies. So I drove us all the way in, and I'm on fumes now.
Of course.
Because I didn't
You're
sleep.
Dead. Yeah.
I just sat not having to drive for like a half hour.
Yeah.
45 minutes at best. And so drove us in. We arrive at 2 p.m. on Saturday. So we're in the mecca of SOWO now.
Oh, yeah.
Like town's just bustling. People are cruising. There's people everywhere. The show itself is going on. And at this time, the show was out like over the river in a private field, like outside of the downtown area. It was walkable from downtown.
Yeah.
But downtown is just like the mecca of people cruising and people getting food and walking, and vendors were on that side of the river too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And or some of the vendors. So we didn't even have anywhere to stay. Well, we did at this point. We were going to stay with Nick Pro in his like hotel room, like on the floor.
Yeah.
We had to leave early in the morning.
Right. Exactly.
To get home. We had to drive another 20 plus hours home.
Yep.
To get to work for 7 a.m. So we basically have like that afternoon and evening to like hang out, and then we got to bail out.
And then you have to drive another 20 hours home.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So we just outside of town, we stopped at a hotel parking lot to detail the car because the car was just filthy.
Of course, yeah.
Washed the car, detailed it, got it all pretty looking, and then we cruised all day.
Yeah.
Then we drove more. We just cruised around town, and met up with a bunch of people and just hung out. And then that night, obviously, we don't get to bed at like 9 or 10 like we really wanted to.
No, yeah.
The plan was we were going to have to leave by 10 a.m. the next morning in order to get home by like before midnight, like around midnight.
Yeah.
Because 24 hours. No, we were going to have to leave at 8 a.m. Yeah, if we left at 8 a.m., we would have been home wee hours of the morning, Monday morning.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Because it was like 20 hours or so.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to wake up and get right to bed or hit the road. So that night we ended up calling it quits right around midnight, maybe. I slept like a rock. I mean, I was just like my tank was on fumes.
Of course.
Got up in the morning. There was a Huddle House right there in town, which is obviously like the cheaper version, if you could call it that, of Waffle House.
Yeah.
And we had breakfast there. We did an impromptu Governor's Club meet that morning. And a bunch of Mercedes guys from Florida were there. A couple friends from Virginia had Mercedes there. We did like a TGC Mercedes meet. Nick Pro was there in his wagon.
Yeah, that's right.
And my buddy Doug Horsley was there in a W220, which no one had bagged 220s at the time.
Yeah.
And his was on like 20s. It was like tucking 20s all around. Like 2013. Like this was, that car was nuts. It was black. And so we had like we found a part right off of Edelweiss, which is that main drag where you see everybody cruising. We've this big section where there were no vendors. So we had a big like Governor's Club meet thing there. And at this point it's like 9, almost 10. I'm like, and Brian Arthus from Ivy League East, good friend of mine from Long Island, was there. And my buddy Tech, Josh Taylor from Florida, Zach DePiero from Connecticut.
Yep.
All those photographers wanted to shoot the 190. And I'm thinking, I don't know when the next time I'll see any of these guys are when I've got this car. So I was like, all right, let's shoot. So I've got a photo of every single one of them shooting the car at the same time. You've probably seen it. And they were basically like in their crossfire of each other. It's so funny.
That's great.
And I had that camera control box for the air suspension.
Yep.
In the Fintail too, but I built a smaller camera and rewired it and all that to like operate the air suspension. So I have a photo of the 5 of them or 4 of them all crammed in the driver's door, like taking a photo of the camera, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But so we hung out and quickly became let's just walk around the show for a while.
Of course.
It's like, we're here.
Yeah.
We're here. Like, I don't think we'll get fired if, if we don't show up on time. And I remember being in like a state of denial. I'm like, yeah, we'll get home in time.
Yeah.
We'll totally get home in time.
We'll beat the clock.
Next thing we know, it's like noon.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's gonna be like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. by the time we arrive if we hammer and don't stop.
Yep. Not good.
But now we're saying, well, we're gonna be late for work anyway. Like,
of course,
know, like if we're gonna be late, might as well just
might as well enjoy being here.
Yeah, that's where the day got to. It's
yeah.
like, well, we'll just deal with it when we get to that bridge, or we'll cross it when we get there. So we hit the road. A monsoon was coming in through like Tennessee that day, like bad. Like, or when you look at the radar, it was like the greens and yellows, and you're like, oh, this might be like real bad.
Yeah.
So we hit the road, and we weren't out of Georgia even for that long until we hit mega monsoon. I mean, southern monsoon.
Yeah.
Like, couldn't see
visibility.
Couldn't see the hood ornament on the hood mascot at the end of the hood. Like just 30 miles an hour on the highway, and I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, we're done. We're not getting home.
Monday's a wash.
Yeah. I'm losing my job. Or worse yet, I get to keep my job, but get a tongue lashing from my boss.
Yeah.
Just fire me. Don't put me through this tongue lashing.
Yeah.
But so we might have been on 81 at this point, north of Knoxville, heading into Roanoke or something. We might have been in Virginia at this point.
Yep.
We ran into, so the same weekend, I didn't know this at the time. I knew this after we saw this car, but Showfest was going on in Mississippi.
Okay.
Now, Showfest, those are the mini trucker boys.
Yeah, that's right.
So Showfest has been one of the largest mini trucking or that type of vehicle modification shows in the country for years. I mean, since like the 90s. So apparently Showfest was that weekend. Wildest of wild, like wildest of mini truck custom stuff. And in the middle of this monsoon, this is Sunday. I don't remember what time it was at this point. It all looked the same. It all blended together.
Yeah, of course.
And amidst this monsoon, you could, as you're pulling up to someone on the highway in another lane, they got their lights on, but you can barely, as you get closer and closer, you can see a shape better, in the heavy rain. And as we're getting closer to this thing, and again, everyone's asleep. I'm looking and I'm like, whatever this is that we're coming up on looks insane. I don't know what this is, but there's no like light or space under it. Like, I don't know what this is. And so I might have woke whoever was driving shotgun up for a little bit. Chris Decato did drive for a couple hours when we first left SOWO, by the way. Because he'll probably, if he hears this, he'll be like, hey, man, I drove for a little bit on the way home. He did. He drove for a couple hours when we first left.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep. I was taking photos of like the Smoky Mountains and stuff. Yeah. But anyway, in this monsoon, this car is getting closer and closer as we're coming up on it. And I'm like, man, this thing looks like it's on the ground. And all of a sudden, we came into like a little bit of like lighter rain. I mean, it's still pretty heavy, but visibility got better. Mm-hmm. And people know this rig because this thing, it was one Showfest that year. Like, took first in Showfest, right? And we're pulling up onto it in a monsoon, in a monsoon.
Yeah.
And it was a white Jeep Grand Cherokee, like body dropped on like a custom chassis, skating. Like,
really?
The rockers were on the ground, and his show wheels were still on up front, but was it the other way around? I can't remember if he had stock wheels up front for steering or he might have had them in the rear.
Yeah.
Because it was like a tubbed rear end with like super wide wheels in the back.
Yeah.
Normally for shows. But he had like the stocks and like balloon tires in the back. So it was like a super sunken look rear end. But he was the thing was on the rockers. He was skating this thing down the road, down the highway in a monsoon.
That's great.
But I didn't even know that thing existed. So apparently this was like the first Jeep Grand Cherokee of that generation that had ever been body dropped. And it was like, that's why it won Showfest. Like no one had done a new gen Jeep Cherokee or something. And
right.
It was white. I remember looking it up on the internet afterwards because I took a photo of it in the monsoon. And Decato was a mini truck guy.
Oh yeah.
So Decato saw it and he's like, dude, that thing was headed to Showfest this year.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, it like won, either took first and best in show or some sort of award there.
That's great.
So we see this thing on the highway and I'm like, we're not hard. We're not hard at all.
We are soft.
I mean, I blew the pan on that 190 more than once on air. So I drove the thing low. But yeah, so we went by and we're just like, what on earth is this? That guy's insane. So we stopped in West Virginia to rotate tires around because my brand new tires at the camber were in the rear. Because I didn't build adjustable like tension rods in the rear, so I could adjust my toe.
Yeah.
And they didn't have like adjustable toe arms, maybe with shims or bushings or something. But
Right.
the more camber it had, the more forward toe, more toe in it had.
A bad combo.
And we just had so much weight in that car that even at full
man.
PSI, like I said,
Yeah.
at maximum PSI, we were still tucking like an inch of wheel, which means we were like towed in mega hard.
Yeah.
So these brand new tires that I only had. Yeah, this was the first trip on those wheels.
Yeah.
First trip. Yeah, wheels had just gone on like the week prior. So brand new tires, like down beyond the wear bar.
Smoked.
So we stopped in West Virginia to rotate tires around. I've got a photo of us with it like up. Jacks under it. We got tires off of it out of sheets or something like that.
Clock ticking.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
It was dark. It was like Sunday night. We're in
Jeez.
West Virginia. We're still like 12 hours away. I'm like, oh, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
So we rotate tires. No other issues on the drive home. But I remember it was 6 a.m. and I don't even know, in New Jersey, like 6 hours away, maybe even farther away than that.
Yeah.
It was 6 a.m. and I was supposed to be at work at 7. And I knew Dan was up. So I texted Dan. I might have even called him. I think I just texted him, but I was like, hey, hit some issues on the road. I mean, technically we did. We had to stop and rotate tires. But that took like 20 minutes. But I was like, we ran into some issues on the road. Definitely not going to be back in time for 7.
Yeah.
And I don't think he responded. Didn't even respond. I'm like, oh, this is worse than him like responding.
Yeah.
And then like I was home by like noon, and I was like, hey man, like I'm home. Do you want me to come in? And I think he was just like, no.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, I didn't have like a real bad run in with him. He's just like, what are you doing? I'm like, listen, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I said, we got down there. Like all in, summarizing, we spent double the time we spent in Helen on the road.
Yeah.
Like we spent more time driving down there than we did in Helen.
Yeah.
So, we were in Helen for like, I don't know, 12 hours. We were under 24 hours basically, because we arrived at 2 p.m. on Saturday and we were out of there before noon on Sunday. So 20 hours there, maybe not even. Oh my gosh. And, so that was a taxing weekend.
Yeah.
For
to say
sure.
the least. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll save the 2014 story. I'll do that in another one.
Yeah.
We've already been talking for almost 2 hours.
Oh, have we?
Yeah, that's crazy. Because I don't want to skimp over details.
Yeah.
Taking the Corvair down.
That's right.
I broke down. I had to fix the car. I broke down to where I couldn't fix the car and we had to get dollied off the highway.
That's right.
And
getting the car done for that year was a big feat.
A week before I was going to be leaving, or so-ish, within 2 weeks of leaving, we had just finished the metalwork of the roof chop. We hadn't even moved on to glasswork yet. Yeah. So, and
that's a whole episode.
It is. The car hadn't even been on the road in 41 years.
Yep.
And so, I was like, I don't even know if this thing's going to make it to Massachusetts alone. And I'm going to drive there alone. Yeah. Yeah. And I was still dating that girl, Ashley, in Nashville. So I decided it was a good idea to go visit her first.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at a map, Nashville's not on the way to Helen, Georgia.
Not
from
really.
New Hampshire.
No.
It was like an extra 10 hours out of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll probably save that for another episode so I can like dive into detail.
Yeah.
But
side stories.
So, I mean, long story short, long story long, whatever you want to, hope everyone's comfortable listening to this.
Yeah.
That was my 2013 SOWO experience. The show itself was awesome. Like, parked at the Hellendorf, which was the spot to park. I mean, that was like 2012 and 2013. You get your fair share of partying. You get plenty of riffraff like you do any of these shows. But I don't remember it being that bad. 2014, although I will touch on that more in detail in another episode, was crazier than 2012 and 13. I remember 14 being like real crazy.
Yeah.
If you watch Chris Petruccio's SOWO video, actually the Corvair is actually the thumbnail of his SOWO 2014 video, Crispy's channel. There's a shot that he took from a balcony in the Hellendorf. Now the way the Hellendorf was set up was you drove underneath. The entrance was like underneath this like little opening.
Yeah.
And the Hellendorf was like a square building that was parking lot in the middle. So when you entered underneath, when you entered inside the Hellendorf, you were inside the confines of the building, basically. So that was like party central in there. And aside from like something like falling into your car, someone bumping into your car, everyone wanted their car inside the Hellendorf. It's
Yeah.
like for Friday and Saturday night, like your car, like everybody sees your car if it's in the
it's a
Hellendorf.
spot. Yep.
And I was staying at the Hellendorf in 2014, and she was like, the woman who owns the Hellendorf was like really, really strict about cars that weren't people staying at the Hellendorf. You know, you had to have like a thing in your window.
Yeah, yeah.
She did pretty well, but she had added security and all that stuff because that place is just out of control.
Of course.
But Chris has a shot in his SOWO video of like this big balcony looking down into the square, into the courtyard, and it's just a sea of people, and you just see the roof of the Corvair, like Moses parting the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Like as I'm pulling in, like people are just kind of like molding around the car, and I didn't think anyone, you know, you're just driving through, and the car's roof chopped, and you're on the ground. So, you know, you're looking at people's belt buckles as you're driving by.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny that there was this shot, you know, Chris had actually gotten the shot of us pulling in.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's a real quick clip, but if you pause it, you can see like just how insane it was.
Yeah.
And so that was a wild year. And yeah, I did want to go in 2015, but I think at the time I was definitely not driving the Corvair again.
Mm-hmm.
That was not ever going to happen again.
Yep.
And I still had the Fintail, and I wasn't going to drive that either. So I think that's what it came down to. I was like, no, I'm not going to go again. And turns out it was just an utter melee of a year.
It was, yeah.
And it's too bad. But in conclusion, I'm super proud of Paul Barney and Corey Sterling and everyone else who put in immeasurable time with the city council of Helen, Georgia, in person, like flying there, and from 2015, which is the last year SOWO, there was nothing organized between 2015 and 2019.
Yep.
So for a couple of years leading up to 2019, Paul and Corey, Paul was flying up like every weekend, like, or driving up. He was in Fort Myers, so it's not exactly close. And sat down with all these people to try to like get them willing to let a car show come there again.
Which is not easy when people ruin it a few years before.
I mean, in a bad way. And there's a lot of locals that brought a lot of trouble there. You know, a lot of the lifted truck guys doing burnouts and donuts in the field and ruining grass on people's properties and stuff. Of course. So it was just utter melee every which way you looked. But they somehow got everybody, you know, and there was a lot of real crazy stuff that they required in order to get, like, it was almost too much work. But to take the 700 down there, it was a totally different ball game, you know. And I was dating a different girl for 2019 when I went down. Yeah. And she had never been to Helen before. And I remember telling her as we were walking around, I'm like, this is not normal SOWO scenario.
Yeah.
Like, this is weird. Like, this is super quiet.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people there, but I remember Thursday night, we arrived Wednesday, I think. And Thursday night we were staying on Edelweiss, like right in town. Everything in town's walking distance.
Yeah.
So we kept the 700 parked at the hotel, and we walked over to the Hellendorf. And usually, you know, I'd say blocks. It's not really blocks, but like normally like 2 or 3 blocks before you get to the Hellendorf, you can hear the Hellendorf.
Yeah,
like, it's nuts. And it was like a Thursday night, might have even been Friday night. And Friday night, usually you can't even walk down Edelweiss.
Yeah, of course.
It's like H2O packed inside Helen.
Smaller city.
Tiny town.
Yeah.
So we're walking. There's like this one intersection that you take a left at, like this tiny. I mean, like speed limit's like 10 miles an hour. Like it's like little walkways that you can drive cars down, basically.
Yeah.
We take that corner and you can like see the entrance of the Hellendorf, and I'm like, this is insane. She's like, why? And I'm like, I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
Normally it's like a scene out of Mad Max inside there, like, and it's almost like
Echoing.
you've reached Thunderdome, and you're like, oh, what's going on in there?
Yeah.
And so we walked in, and it was like a group of people over there sitting down around their cars, like drinking, hanging out. A group of people over here sitting around their cars, just chit chat. It was just like, it was almost like you walked into a speakeasy. You can hear like groups of people talking.
Yeah.
I look to my right, and the Tennessee crew's there, like Mason and Carly and everyone else just sitting there chatting. And I remember walking over to them, and I'm like, hey. And they're like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, pretty good. Like, we're talking normally and we can hear each other. Normally you're like, what? Huh? Like you're in a bar that some rock band's playing and you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was crazy. Like, it was still a good time though. It wasn't like nobody showed up.
Right.
But I think Paul and Corey and all those guys did a pretty good job letting everyone know that they weren't going to tolerate any
there's no leeway.
Riffraff. Yeah. And the police were pretty tight. There were a few cases where at least that I've heard, that were a little too crazy. Like police are a little bit too tight on stuff. But Helen was never the way Ocean City police is now. You know, it wasn't that bad. They weren't like messing with people's cars.
Right.
Like if you like mouthed off to a police officer or something, they'd cuff you and book you. And it was like, you know, stuff that some cops would normally just look the other way. But this was almost like you had to walk on eggshells this one year.
Yeah.
So the next year, this year, obviously, they didn't do it because of COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
But they are planning. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not going to blow any smoke. Paul would like to do it again. But between everything that would have to take place to like obviously get Helen to like, you know, you have to jump through so many hoops to have a car show in Helen, Georgia.
Right.
Now it's a sanctioned event. So between that and now that we're going to be entering our second year with COVID out there, like he's not sure, but he is putting on Eurotripper this year in February. So what he did was he passed on Eurotripper. I think it would have been Eurotripper 6, I think. He passed on Eurotripper in Fort Myers in February to focus all of his efforts on Alpine Vag Fair.
That's right.
Last year, which was in May. So, you know, it's just a couple months between each other. So this year he wanted to bring Eurotripper back because that's such a great show. To go down to Fort Myers, Florida in February for a Northeast Boy, because I've gone 2 or 3 years now. But boy, it's like, that's a holiday.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I usually fly into Orlando. I'll drive with some friends down to Fort Myers on the Gulf. And it's February. It's 80 degree weather. Yep. I vended the first Eurotripper I went to. It was the first show I ever vended with the Governor's Club.
Yeah.
And did pretty well. And I was like, man, like this is awesome. But then I remembered I'd ordered my new tent and ordered a bunch of stuff that I just had drop shipped right to Paul's from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Because then I realized, because luckily my friend Sean from Volkswagen helped me ship. They were headed up to the Northeast somewhere from Eurotripper. He's like, just put your stuff in the trailer, man. We'll take it up that far. And I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, savior.
Yeah, because I realized, if I like had a van or like my setup and was going to drive from here to Fort Myers, like I would have needed to make double what I did to pay for it. So, but that was a cool first entry to like vending shows because I'd always wanted to, and I just hadn't really made the plunge. Even now with only like 4 or 5 shows under my belt, I'm still not like fully committed to like vending shows, like outfitting a rig and like going to shows. I'd love to, but I have all the respect in the world for like Matt Phillips from Lord Lifestyle and Mike Tulliver from Stance Wars. Although Tulliver puts on shows, big stadium shows, but like guys like Matt and other friends who have like brands, like they started an Instagram page and sold t-shirts and stickers and then grew it into like something huge. But friends who like weathered the storm of taking losses at shows, numerous in a row maybe, and continuing to weather those storms and keep vending shows till they started to figure out their rhythm and started to do well at shows. And because for me, I did well at Eurotripper and then I did Dust Off in 2017 and profited like $100. Yeah. And I was like, I will never vend another show. Yeah, I won't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And but what bummed me out was I did so well in Fort Myers, Florida. Like I know a lot of friends in Florida, but for the most part, the majority of people at Eurotripper weren't like my front doorstep like friends. It wasn't like my local community. So to do well down there, I was thinking, man, if I vend Dust Off,
right, all your people
in the next couple months, because this was February and Dust Off was in April, I'm like, that's my front door. Like, that'll be awesome. I'll clean up there. Well, after paying for the booth spot, fuel to get down there, and the whole setup or whatever, like, I think after the hotel cost, I literally had like $100 bill to put in my pocket, and I'm like, oh, never doing this ever again.
Yeah, I get it.
And so I did Vag Fair in Maine this past year, which went pretty well. I had the Century there, so that was pretty fun. But that's close by. That wasn't too bad. And then obviously did Riverside in the fall. And that went pretty well. So I think as long as I get a truck between now and February, something I can have for a while to like make sure it's sorted out for a drive like that, I'd probably do Riverside and vend it. Yeah. You know. And I was telling Mason this too. I was like, dude, I don't know. That needs some oil. I could hear it the last few times I leaned back. I'm like, that is coming from my boom.
Yeah, yeah.
I was telling him, I said, I'd really like to vend it with Ludwig's Garage because I want to push that real hard.
Yeah.
And him and I almost said it at the same time. Like, yeah, I think Governor's Club would be a better fit down there. Just because it's like, it's been around for almost 10 years now. Yeah. It's like a little bit more of like an established name. And it speaks to more people than Ludwig's Garage does. The plan is, though, is the Governor's Club will always be the Governor's Club. Yeah. I'm not going to mess with that at all. Yeah. But I want to focus on Ludwig's Garage more, and I want to brand that more. Yeah. Not just with the podcast, the YouTube channel, or the cars, but I want to like build that into like a vintage style brand.
Yep.
And so it's aesthetically different than the Governor's Club, but focus on like 50s era branding and labeling and that type of stuff. So everything that comes out of Ludwig's Garage is more vintage-esque, which is more my lane anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so I might do some Ludwig's Garage stuff to have for sale there.
Yeah,
with the
why
Governor's
not?
Club stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's all, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe do some high-end Governor's Club stuff. Maybe do some like polo shirts and like some other like collared shirts and some stuff that I haven't really done before, I guess. But we'll see. There's a lot of work to do between now and then. A lot of work to do with possibly that shop space too. Yeah. Hopefully your current situation you're working on with a job like that'll be a great setup. If you can get that locked up, hopefully that'll go well.
Yeah, hate to say I'm holding my breath on that, but I definitely am.
Yeah, well, that'll be a great announcement. Like if that goes through, because that'll be a great promotion for both the shop and you and all that.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that too. We'd be helping each other out. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is cool.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna mention it here in case things don't go well. But, but it sounds like it's probably in the bag, so that'll be awesome.
Yeah,
and then. Yeah, and then we can. Yeah, then. I mean, because then once you're like, all right, I'm ready to go in on a shop.
Yeah,
we might even be able to lock up. Like, because if I'm making steady money in that shop space too, and I'm like, you know what, let's move up into a double large shop.
Exactly.
And spend the same amount that I'm spending now
equally
between the two of us.
Yes,
possibilities are endless there.
Yep, really,
that'd be awesome. So. Here's hoping it will be 2000. Goodness gracious. I bet you can't even hear that through the recording.
Maybe. I don't know. I think I can hear it. I can hear it in my mic. So
yeah.
I mean, in my headphones.
Yeah. Whatever. So
it's fine.
When this comes out, it will be 2021. So actually, what I should have started this episode with is Happy New Year.
Everybody. Oh yeah. We'll finish with that.
Yeah, because I wanted to get. Probably what I'll do is I'll have this out for New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get this done and out tomorrow, but tomorrow's New Year's Eve.
Right.
So yeah, fast forward to this highlight mark on the timeline. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, yeah.
It is 2021, and I think we're still all here. I think. Coming from the past, speaking into the future.
When was the first episode?
It was January or February.
Of 2020?
Yeah, of this year.
Yeah.
I'll have to look. Yeah, it was January.
Yeah.
It was January. Yeah, so coming into a year, but it was a real tough year to do. I was hoping to be on the episode 50 something because I wanted to do one a week really bad.
Yep.
So I'm hoping 2021 I stick to that. There'll be a lot more workload though with the shop space and all that.
Exactly.
So,
a lot more to talk about.
That too. But I mean, as far as like taking the time to do all this stuff, I'm going to do my best to stay on top, to be even more consistent with the podcast in 2021.
Yeah.
On top of everything else I'm biting off. So yeah.
Yep.
We shall see.
Yeah. More YouTube content.
I'm excited, man. I mean, like I said, I just bought a brand new camera and lens and brand new microphone. And I mean, and that was another expenditure. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do this. But then I look at, that poor Canon 70D with that huge Rode mic that is now zip tied together.
Yeah.
I broke that on our trip to Manchester, England.
That's right.
When we flew to Players Classic last year. I snapped.
Pulling it out in the airport and it was like broken.
Snapped it right off.
Yeah.
With that 10 to 18 mil lens, that's a huge, heavy camera setup.
Yeah.
And it's an old camera, so it doesn't have built-in image stabilization. It just looks, it's got a great DSLR look, but it's just too shaky. It's too heavy. The microphone's all beat up. And the GoPro, obviously, if you've watched any of the YouTube channel stuff, we've been using the GoPro all year.
Yeah.
Because it was just easier.
Yeah.
Built-in stabilization, had a built-in microphone, but the microphone's awful on it. Sounds like you're underwater.
Yeah.
And even image quality isn't that good compared to DSLRs that are out there today. Mm-hmm. So I dropped the hammer on a brand new camera, new lens, new Rode microphone. Everything's new. So hopefully the second I'm getting into that shop space, like all the new, not just new content, but new content with like new, better gear. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm constantly investing in myself and all of this stuff, but I'm hoping it'll pay off at some point.
Oh, I think so.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I gotta stick with it. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, of
stick
course.
with it and be confident that what you're doing is leading up to something. So,
Yep.
Well, in conclusion, Limitless_Corey.
Yes.
Corey. Any other plugs that you can think of? Just Instagram, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really do Facebook. Sorry to everyone that's tried to add me, and I just don't go on Facebook.
I should do the same thing. I figure if I get any laser engraving jobs through Facebook, weeding through the dumpster fire that is such Facebook, it was worth it.
Yeah.
So I stick to it just because I'm like, well,
Yeah,
those are my
course.
free websites.
Of course. Yeah. It
but
is.
But I don't blame you one bit. I hate it, especially after this year.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so John Ludwick on Instagram, JOHN.LUDWICK. Ludwick's Garage. I know a lot of you guys have reached out talking about where Night Laser went, because Night Laser page is gone.
Yeah.
It's the same page, but it's like Ludwick's Garage now. So you can reach me there. And the Governor's Club, the Rising Sea, those are all the straight handles on Instagram. Thank you again for everybody who put an order in for the Ludwick's Garage shirts. As we speak, as I just looked at my phone, the invoices come in and production will start next week on those shirts. So I'm hoping by the second week of January, I am shipping those shirts out to you guys. So thank you for your patience and hanging tight with me on that. I mean, every time I do a pre-order right around Christmas, it always comes into that.
Yeah.
Everybody's closed or everybody's like super busy with orders around Christmas time.
That's right. Of course.
Yeah. So thank you for your patience there. What else? Shop space coming soon. New YouTube stuff coming soon.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple iTunes or just audio listening to this, I just dropped. I finally put together a build video of the BMW 700. I finally did it. I filmed a lot of that build with my dad, and I never put it together for a YouTube episode. So I just put together like a 25-minute full build. There's a lot of stuff I skimmed over for the sake of time, so it didn't get boring or anything like that. But 25-minute full build, full story of that car.
Yep.
And where it was, and
Really worth the watch for
thanks,
sure.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was not the way I wanted to do it. I ended up doing commentary here 2 years later.
Yeah.
And then superimposing all the stuff. But
even I like that. Yeah.
it motivated me to do it with the Corvair and the Lada.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think those will be the next couple episodes coming.
Even the Derby. You can even do one on the Derby.
Yeah, that one will be a little tougher because with the Corvair and the Lada, I filmed a lot of that. I video filmed a lot of that.
Okay. Yeah.
The Derby, I just took photos.
Yep.
So that could probably be an easy 15-minute one with like photos superimposed.
Yep.
Yeah. If I between now and possibly it getting busy with like moving into the shop, if that still all comes to pass, I might do an episode of that too.
Yep.
But yeah, the Corvair and the Lada, I have a lot of video footage of building those cars. So I'm thinking about doing that because, it's had a great response, and I'm thankful for it. So, yeah, thank you to everybody else who's reached out and said you enjoyed the video and shared it around or commented, liked, and subscribed. But that is, so if you guys are listening, the YouTube channel is just my name. It's just John Ludwick. And that'll do it, man. We put a 2-hour.
Heck yeah.
We got a tour in there.
It's a good one to get back into it.
Yeah, I want to start like recording more of these with friends again.
Yeah.
Just because it's super easy, easier. I want to start. I've been too stubborn to do like Zoom ones or video ones, but Ben Walker from England and I have been like Zooming again lately.
Yeah.
We did it at the beginning of the pandemic, but we've been doing it again lately. And I'm like, dude, we get talking about shop and cars and projects, and aside from the quality is what's keeping me from doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, the quality like of Zoom and your little MacBook camera and audio, it's like not that good. And people who aren't in video or audio production anyway don't have the gear. Like when I did the ILB Drivers Club podcast, it was super easy for Adam because I had this gear here. I could video with that camera.
Yeah.
And then he could take all that and add it to his podcast.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't like I had to screen record a Zoom call. But for the sake of content and good content, to have somebody else talk about, something like Ben from another part of the world, to
definitely.
talk about his American Corvair that he bagged, and his business endeavors and all that.
He's working on a lot of cool projects now too.
Yeah, especially now that he's like kind of outfitting his own little machine shop.
Yeah.
So he's working on a lot of cool projects for other people.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. So, yeah, I'm looking at doing more of that, and hopefully in 2021 we can start traveling a little bit more.
Yeah.
Than we did this year.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for joining in on this one.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, next week maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yep.
Happy holidays. No, I mean, holidays are over by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.